Thank you for joining us for the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting for 1 a.m. Monday, May 17th, 2021. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on our agenda today is a presentation, Deschutes River Conservancy update. We got Kate Fitzpatrick and Craig Harrell. Thank you very much for joining us in person. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thanks for having us today. I just wanted to clarify that we originally planned to come to give a DRC update, and then that merged into an update on the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative as well. And so we have Craig, and then I believe Scott Aycock and Evan Sussman with COCO and COIC are zooming in as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way to tell.
Yep, so they're available. That's, yep. Yep.
I've seen them both.
Yeah, so the flow will be that I will give an update on the Deschutes River Conservancy, and I will also provide some good background on water. Scott Aycock with COIC will give a quick update on the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative, and then Craig will speak to how this benefits the irrigation districts and why they're involved, and then Adam Sussman will do the same for how the cities are involved and why it's important for the cities. So with that.
Well, and I'll acknowledge, I mean, we've had a dry spring. It looked like we were generally at an average snowpack a couple, 6 weeks ago. It's like, oh, maybe we're okay, and now no rain. And it's a critical year, but hopefully the efforts we've put in place in the last few years, and we'll learn about all kinds of stuff today, getting through this current period and growing season. So thank you very much.
I will be submitting a letter in the next few days from the Deschutes Basin Board of Control requesting drought declaration.
Yep.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
understood.
And then I saw Samantha's slides. Are those, is that for,
We have slides available here, and then, electronically. Is somebody doing slides? Okay, so maybe,
Do you happen to have it on a flash?
so Sharon's available online, so, and you said you've sent them to Samantha.
yeah, I think Sharon was out of town, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, and now Sharon's with us and Samantha's not here right now, so we might have a disconnect, so.
So that's fine. I can just pull up my laptop so I have them, and then just follow along.
Oh, here's Sharon, so she can help coordinate.
Sorry, the microphones aren't working.
Oh, okay. So little technical difficulties, and we'll take time to get the slides coordinated. We're getting there, we're getting there.
It's this in-person thing.
This is, yeah, how do we do this?
Hey, Sharon. So on your way down, you may or may not have caught, these guys sent a PowerPoint to Samantha.
Okay.
Is there, if Samantha's not up there right now, is there a way to like capture that from her email and oh,
So she's
okay.
got it, okay, got it.
Awesome, thank you.
So we've got it printed out, we were just looking to see it on Zoom.
You don't have this? We've got it. We were just hoping to get it for everyone who's watching.
That's okay.
There's no rush, we're only 4 minutes after 1 o'clock here, so we're doing good.
I don't have a thumb drive. I can email it to you. Okay, if I have.
Okay. There's some beautiful pictures in here.
Would it be easier with the drive or?
You just do the thumb drive, yeah.
Then we could go straight.
While she's doing that, I guess I don't know if you've heard from Kyle Gorman on the drought situation, but we did have 100% snowpack. What we're seeing, Kyle described as evaporation or more significant than they've seen. 45 days of zero precipitation in the mountains, along with, we think that some of that melt is going straight into the ground because of the past 3 years. So we're at 47% snowpack today, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any live flow to the river. So I think it's going to be a harsher summer than it was last year. So.
Yeah, and as I say, 6 weeks ago, it looked like maybe we were going to be kind of okay, but it's changing quickly.
Yeah, it's one of the strangest years on live flow. I've talked to past managers over the last 30 years, and they have been seeing the live flow component not there
Yeah.
like this.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, I got to visit a spot where I would typically see like a peak wildflower bloom this time of year over the weekend, and it was what little there had been was already well past, like looked like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So
Even the valley's having some issues that they haven't had in a long time. Fescue fields that typically go off of average rainfall, there are actually farmers that are growing grass seed are actually putting in hand lines and watering those to get a yield that's a little bit greater than using the natural rain.
Mm. So yeah, at this moment, we're working on getting the slides up to speed here. We'll have it in just a moment. Yeah.
Well, then we could talk about Klamath Falls and what's happened down there. It's
It is.
unbelievable.
It is the poster child of what happens when you don't have an HCP. I would say that the Deschutes Basin, by completing our HCP, we will not be in that situation. It's really unfortunate what they're going through. I think they were allotted 30,000 acre feet for 5 districts, and then I think it's 0 now. So.
Yeah.
0.
I'm seeing a slide.
Craig, do you think that the kind of urgency of agricultural water supplies in so many parts of the state adds up to any kind of more substantial legislative action this year?
State or federal?
State.
I think it highlights all the work we've been doing and maybe can move some of those legislative asks to the top. That would be our hope, things that work for everybody. But yeah, in trying times, that's when I think things become front and center.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now back there? Okay.
Here we go.
All right, she said to speak up. Yeah, so here we are, and we're talking about water generally, and the reason you'll see all of us are all in the same organization, so it makes sense to give you an update on those together. Craig's on my board, and the cities are on our board as well. And Commissioner Adair, yeah, the Klamath Basin and other areas in the state are really driving home why it's so important that we do this work together to make sure that we don't have that situation for irrigators in our basin and that we're taking care of all the water uses. So I'll give you a brief introduction for those of you who aren't super familiar with the Deschutes River Conservancy. We were founded in 1996 by a really unique effort of the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs, the irrigation districts, and environmental groups to try to stay ahead of conflict, exactly to avoid a Klamath Basin type situation. So to work together to do projects that meet water supply needs and that also, don't leave anybody behind in the community. So this is the Upper Deschutes Basin. The river obviously starts to the south of the map and flows north to the Columbia Basin. We're really focused on everything in Deschutes, Crick, and Jefferson counties. You can see those brightly colored areas are the 7 irrigation districts that divert water and spread it out to farmland in our 3-county area. And this is just a really quick snapshot of the water supply and demand in our basin, and you don't have to think a lot about this, and it's really just trying to show you on the left side that 88% of the water rights in the basin are managed for irrigation. So the majority of the water lives with irrigation. And that the majority of the demand, which is on the right side, actually is on the in-stream side for some of the altered stream flows due to diversions. You'll also see some irrigation needs in there for those who have less reliable water rights. And probably over time you could see that part of the pie growing as the climate continues to get drier and drier. And there's also the shaded area is the need of growing cities and communities for water rights. This is just graphically what some of the issues that the DRC and our partners were set up to solve. We've got really low flows historically below the city of Bend and the Deschutes River. Wachus Creek used to run dry in the summertime on dry years. Crooked River through Smith Park was really just a trickle. So these are the issues that we work together to do projects and programs to restore these flows in a way that works for the community. You can see our just stream flow restoration results over time increasing. So now you see a restored Wachus Creek with flows that are really helping create better habitat for fish. Along the way, the irrigation district has been able to operate more efficiently due to all the infrastructure upgrades that we've done with that in partnership with the irrigation district, and the farmers continue to enjoy the same or better access to water through these projects. Crooked River, the same story. We've really helped farmers in North Unit Irrigation District have access to more reliable water in exchange for some flow restoration in the Crooked River. And a lot of work with Central Oregon Irrigation District and other irrigation districts doing piping projects and leasing projects that put water back into the Middle Deschutes River downstream of Bend. So the success in the Deschutes is really quite phenomenal when you look across the West, especially doing this in partnership with our irrigation and city communities. We've not only restored flow and habitat, we've improved reliability for agriculture, we've generated water for the cities, and importantly, we've created a community of stewardship and collaboration that I think extends beyond just water issues, and also to the water issues that we still are dealing with. So we do have some key issues in the basin. You've all, I'm sure, heard of the Oregon spotted frog being listed as an endangered species, and some critical flow restoration needs upstream of Bend in the wintertime. And when Craig talks about an HCP, a huge focus of that HCP is to fix those flows, which the irrigation districts have committed to do. But how do we help them do that in a way, again, that doesn't put COID in danger or North Unit Irrigation District farmers out of business in Jefferson County? We also have ongoing need to supply water for cities, and I can let Adam speak to that a little bit later in the presentation. This is not just bad for the river, but private landowners are having, things like this, their docks become unusable due to some of those issues. So the DRC, like I said, has been working for the last 25 years, making significant progress with our key partners. When we were trying to tackle the Upper Deschutes River, we realized we needed more information, more analytical tools. So we just completed, with a 50-person stakeholder group, the Bureau of Reclamation and the state of Oregon, a basin study that looked at supply and demand and identified strategies to meet the needs. So we're just finishing that process. This is just a list of the groups involved. This list will look very similar to the list of the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative, which we've launched as the next iteration of this group. From the basin study, we learned that having common information and all sitting around the same table with that information has been invaluable. We also learned that we actually have enough water in most years to solve the problem if we have the financial commitment and the cultural commitment to do it. So we're very different from the Klamath in that we have the solutions. We just need to implement them, which is not always easy, but it is possible. We really saw trust built around the table, and that collaboration led to projects and continues to lead to projects. And we realized that this community-based approach really needs to be supported for the long term if we're going to deal with ongoing and continued issues of drought and growing populations. So the path forward is that we're continuing, I say we, a lot of this is Craig and the irrigation districts are really accelerating project implementation. The DRC sees ourselves as a major supporter by finding funding and helping with those projects. We're all going after more funding to accelerate this work. We believe there will be some policy constraints that as a basin, if we come forth with some collaborative recommendations, we might be able to, at the state level, get some more flexibility, which would really benefit our work. And lastly, like I've mentioned, we retooled the Basin Study Work Group into what we're now calling the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative. And we're confident that this will be the enduring collaborative group in the community that continues to wrestle these hard issues to the ground and continues to accelerate project implementation. So I believe that leads us to the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative. And I'll let Scott Aycock, if he's on the Zoom, take it from here.
Yeah, I'm here, Kate. Thank you. So Scott Aycock, Community Economic Development Director at COIC. And for the purposes of this presentation, I also serve as the facilitator or the lead facilitator for the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative. And actually, some of my talking points Kate already covered, so I'll skip ahead. I think the key difference between the Basin Study Working Group and the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative is that while the Basin Study helped us with the science, outlined the needs for water for agriculture, the river, the communities, the potential types of conservation projects to meet those needs, it wasn't a decision process. It wasn't a means of creating a strategy or a set of actions, et cetera, to meet all those needs. And so we still need to create that shared approach that turns the corner from a study and an outline, I guess, to a strategy, a shared strategy that supports all the implementation that is needed to be done. And as Kate mentioned, mainly that's a lot of that implementation is on behalf is being led by the irrigation districts, but they need support. And the DBWC is really set up to do that. The group is working on an integrated conservation approach that blends many different types of projects to meet those needs as the three legs of the stool. And we're doing it as a broad, very inclusive, multi-stakeholder collaborative for a variety of reasons. One is, no matter what we do, that's going to require some probably significant amounts of state and federal funding to meet all the needs, and to and having a shared approach as well as broad stakeholder agreement makes it much easier to secure that funding. Folks want to know if you have broad regional support from your community. There will also, as Kate mentioned, likely be policy and regulatory changes or shifts that are needed. And again, same thing. It's a lot easier to get those done when you have that sort of can demonstrate a shared vision and broad local support. There's some other pieces to collaboration, though, that we don't always talk about. And one is, studies have proven that the more diverse a group, the better the solutions that come out of it, because individuals all have information, interests, perspectives, et cetera, that without those folks being at the table, the projects can suffer. They just won't be as good. They won't meet those integrated needs as well. And another reason we do collaboration up front is to at least, it can't eliminate, but at least reduce the potential for objections and lawsuits on the back end. So sometimes collaboration can take a little bit longer up front, but the idea is that then it paves the way for rational, steady, progressive implementation. And in the meantime, the group is dedicated, like that's their focus. When we did the interviews to find out what folks wanted out of this effort, it was implementation, again and again and again. And so what we're trying to do is create the pathways and vehicles and sideboards, et cetera, that are going to really support that implementation. The last thing I'll mention too is that it's being collaborative like this and the way we're scoping it out is a great vehicle for just broader general public engagement, not just the folks that are around the table, but the general public itself. So we're planning community forums. We have a communications committee that's dreaming up all kinds of other ways of engaging the public. So at this point, the DBWC has 80 individual members that represent 44 agricultural, community, and environmental organizations. We have irrigation districts, local governments, community groups, all the relevant state and federal agencies, and key environmental organizations at the table. And I don't know, can I screen share just one thing? Is that, or should I could put it in the chat.
Yes, so, yeah, you'll have the authority, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I just wanted to show you guys, can you see it or no?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to show you guys the just the website. So if you want to find more information about the DBWC, it's coic.org/DBWC/. And we have a new logo that's on the slide, Kate, put up. We need to get that up at the top of this thing. But anyway, and then you can see there's just sort of some general information as well as a link to the roster who's involved, as well as the charter, and then all the meeting materials and all the other stuff. So just wanted you to see that. And that's all I have on the DBWC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless there's questions.
Thank you very much. Scott?
All right, so I guess that's the segue into collaboration and why are the districts part of this and why we feel strongly. This is my 7-year anniversary month. I believe Commissioner DeBone was here for my first public meeting. We've come a long way since that meeting on historic canals, and rightfully, it's more than just about designations of canals. It's about the whole picture. So over the last 7 years, we have worked very hard as districts to bring that collaborative approach, really working hard to bring in all parties. While we may not always agree on the specifics, we do agree it needs to be better. We also know that there's strength and power in how we ask for funding, legislative concepts. If you don't have a strong voice in your community, you can't make those changes. For the irrigators, it's really important to have this collaborative group continue forward, to continue to look at legislative changes, to continue to implement habitat conservation planning projects. It's super important the way that we move forward as a community on water issues. We are not the Klamath. We will never be the Klamath as long as we stay together. We are fortunate that we saw the Habitat Conservation Plan through with federal funding, $9 million, 12 years, and it was just signed. With that, there's a lot of work that comes. The districts are going to be implementing that plan as districts. I think what we have to be aware of is there's projects we've always known that needed to come with that. We are opportunistic as farmers and irrigators on finding money. Unfortunately, it comes through COVID, through ARPA funding, through earmarks. Whether you agree with how that funding is spent or not on a political level, we are bipartisan as irrigated ag because we believe if that money is going to be put out in the communities in the United States, we have a great story here to bring that funding to the Deschutes. We want to keep telling our story as one voice and keep showing people that we're doing what we say. I believe in the 7 years we've continued to prove over and over again that we're implementing and moving forward as we stated. I think it's super important to remember that. We won't have this funding, we won't have the legislative concepts if it falls apart, so really investing in having this collaborative place where we can all have disagreements and talk through some of those things and work through how we get to the end. The habitat conservation is 30 years and I'm 90 days into implementing. I think I told Kate that's 10,500 days left and everybody's asking me what's next already. But Kate reminds me this is for the next 100 years. So we are focused implementing, we are focused on projects. Just to let you know, the Smith Rock Kingway project, we're finished with year 1 work. Next year, we'll finish that project. That project is around $31 million. It'll have 30 CFS directly into the river. But more importantly, it's kept 150 jobs locally. That's hugely important. We, COID, were fortunate that we hired a contractor that is local, and we have a design bid build concept that this contractor, as long as their pricing comes in, will continue to be the contractor. So we also believe that as we try to recover from COVID, these projects aren't only good for the three legs of the stool, they are good for the community to help rebuild. And we'll get there.
Thank you, Craig. We have, if we could cue the slideshow back up, Adam from representing Central Oregon Cities Organization has one slide to share and speak to.
All right. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up?
Yeah,
From
sorry,
anyone?
Adam, hold on. I'm just going to have them forward the slideshow one slide.
My one slide. Good afternoon, everybody. While they're doing it, and if it doesn't work, it's fine either way. Kate, I'm Adam Sussman. I actually work for a firm called GSI Water Solutions, and I'm here on behalf of the Central Oregon Cities Organization. And I'm going to be just saying a few words about the third leg of the stool. We keep talking about the three legs of the stool, so that's who I'm here on behalf of. I wanted to let you know that generally my role is to provide some kind of policy and technical support for COCO, and we actually have a water subcommittee. And just this morning, Mayor Beebe from the city of Prineville was elected to be our elected representative on the COCO Water Subcommittee. So you should be seeing him in more of these venues. Just kind of punching through some of these, I want to start by saying I thought Craig did a great job, and I would just say me too, in terms of the need to have sort of that collaboration when it comes to funding, policy changes at the state and federal level. I've been at this a long time, and I know many of you have too, and without that kind of juice, it's just very hard to get things done. COCO itself as an organization has been around since 2002, and they work a lot on common interests. And what really brought them together, honestly, was water and water issues in the basin during the 2000s. And, you know, many people forget that cities who perform so many different functions essentially are also a water utility, right? So they're the water utility for the most part, that's responsible for providing public water to the folks that live within their city for public health, safety, and welfare. And I think Kate and Craig have both done a good job to lay out this is not simple stuff, and I won't get into the details, but I will just kind of lay out there that in order to appropriate additional groundwater for municipal supply in the basin, that requires some mitigation to offset the impacts of pumping groundwater. And that has multiple ties to our other legs of the stool, including the districts who are a great and valued partner in working through some of these things, as well as that mitigation providing some level of restoration. So we are three legs of the stool, but we're very integrated and working together through these complicated problems. COCO's been, I'm not showing up here to say, hey, we're new at collaboration and we're excited to join collaboration. COCO's been at this a long time, really getting serious about it in 2004 with an organization called the Deschutes Water Alliance, which had a lot of input from the county at that time. And we've evolved. We've evolved to the Basin Study Work Group to do the study, and now to the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative. So we at COCO just had a meeting this morning, and again, kind of confirming our commitment to the collaborative as a place where these difficult and important issues can be discussed and hopefully resolved one way or another. We know we can't do this on our own. We can't do it in our own little silo. And the collaborative is the place to fill this role. And for those of you who have been involved in collaboratives like this, you understand that having staffing like Scott being there to facilitate us and having the resources for staffing and organization are key to the success of an organization. So we are fully supportive of the collaborative and look for any and all opportunities to keep it funded and well functioning. So thank you for the opportunity to show up and share a few words today.
Thanks, Adam. I just have one more slide, if we could forward to that, and then we could open it up for questions and discussion. We'd be remiss if we didn't come here, encouraging Deschutes County to be involved in every way possible. So first of all, we want to thank you that Commissioner Chang and Adam Smith are available to participate in the collaborative. That's been really positive for us and hopefully for the county. We also are interested in the opportunity to become, I think, what you call a community support partner, where you provide some level of annual funding to support, the ongoing operations of the collaborative. Adam mentioned, COIC facilitates the collaborative. That's a lot of time and money, basically, to do that. And then the DRC is technical support staff for that collaborative. So an investment from the county of, $20,000 a year, whatever might be available, would be really invaluable to keep this effort going. And lastly, I'm not super intimate with how you're managing the ARPA funds that have come to you, and I want to just recognize there's a lot of relief that should be going to, and I honor all your decisions in that way, but I would just suggest that Craig mentioned jobs and rebuilding, and we're working the Smith Rock project that he spoke of, where the big pipe is going in to save water. We're trying to find funds to help those farmers connect to that pipeline and be able to do the on-farm efficiency upgrades to save further water and to help their operations. So that's a program we're working on funding now, and it could take the form of a forgivable loan program for farmers to do that work in COID, which in turn would help North Unit farmers and would help the river. So to the extent that there's any money available through the ARPA funding, we would more than welcome further conversations on that. Other than that, I think that's our presentation, so we can open it up to any questions or discussion.
Oh, I had a question for Craig. I was wondering about COID. I know that last year some of your users actually donated their water to go to North Unit, because that's where we do have significant agriculture, and it's actually, it's in Jefferson County, but that's where they raise the carrots and the seed and, the garlic and everything else. I'm just wondering, is that going to happen again this year?
So remember, COID does have farmers that raise all those same crops as well.
But do they bring in, sell them in semis?
What we ended up doing last year was we reduced because farmers chose not to take the water that weren't farming those cash crops, we reduced our live flow delivery to 80%. So the 20% reduction that we did went directly to North Unit. That is how North Unit was able to make it through August last year. And this year, I don't know how we're going to do it, but there will be a lot of shared misery and reductions out there.
So are any of your people still doing flood irrigating?
Yeah, we have about a third of our district still flood irrigates. Some do it efficiently, some don't do it very well at all. My board has authorized $250,000 last month at our board meeting to be used for an on-farm loan program where we provide the money to our patrons to try to change over. So we're trying to incentivize people by doing low interest loans from ourselves to make those changes.
If I could just add to that program I was talking about that goes alongside the pipe would do that as well, where we're piping private laterals, and where there is flood, we would incentivize people to switch to sprinkler as well. And that all the projects we're working on with COID are really geared towards increasing the reliability of North Unit's water, so that, while keeping COID whole, of course, so that we can take some of that risk as a community off of Jefferson County.
Yeah, well, flood irrigation looks bad and is not the best application of water. Where most of our losses is in the transmission to get it to the farm.
But it's great that you're looking at all opportunities to save water throughout the whole chain.
Yep.
And I just wanted to say that the idea of using some ARP funds to support this conversion process of helping COID farmers to improve their efficiency to make water available for farmers with more junior water rights, I think is very exciting in terms of just improving the overall resiliency of agriculture as a whole throughout the basin, while at the same time trying to benefit the river and creating more opportunities to share water with both the river and with thirsty cities, the thirsty growing cities. So,
And we are also working on district-to-district transfers. We're doing one of those with North Unit this year. It's not enough to save every farmer, but it's a start. That's also, we have a mitigation bank that we also need to get back to doing to help the cities as well. So we have lots of tools. We just need to keep working at them.
I guess the one other thing I wanted to say was to make an investment in that on-farm efficiency work. It really is the key. That work benefits everyone, but what that, importantly from a financial perspective, what that investment does is it takes the pressure off the private landowner who might be willing to do something good for the overall community and for the river and for other farmers, but really has no financial incentive to do that. I mean, they have water rights, they're getting their water supplied, and they could just continue to do that without them feeling any impacts of if they're senior water rights holders. But if we can make it easy for them to do something good for the whole, by offering them a low interest loan or small grant or something like that, then we enable that process, that decision to happen at a farmer by farmer basis, and it does benefit them in the long run. It provides them with increased predictability and lower energy costs if they have to pump water around and things like that. But really, they don't have a very strong financial incentive to make those investments themselves. So the idea of helping them do this good thing for the whole is again, I think, a really exciting opportunity for investment for us.
So, Craig, one question at the 30-year HCP, does that have kind of action items or a point in time for these investments, I guess is what I'm trying to, is there strategic points in time already laid out in the HCP?
Yeah, there are strategic timelines for how much water needs to be in the upper Deschutes at certain times. Over the 10-year mark, it's 300 CFS. Over the 20 and 30 year, it goes up exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Projects are not tied to it because there's no way to tie the projects. We know projects are how we're going to make the water be. We can create a market basis with the water once we start doing these projects. Simply, the only person that has signed away all their water rights if we don't get these projects done is North Unit. So what would happen is North Unit would just have to drive up whatever we haven't gotten done. Their district would shrink until we could build those projects in. So it is a scary time for North Unit. They put a lot of trust into their partners, COID specifically, that we can continue to do these projects.
Mm-hmm.
We believe in 10 years we'll be significantly down the road with backfilling what they would have to give up on acres.
And that sets the pace to this whole thing is kind of what my observation is, which is exciting. So yeah, these ARPA dollars coming through, my thought is right now as a board of, as the county, Deschutes County proper, these are all listed items to be prioritized on a spreadsheet to distribute that money for the best value possible for all of us. So, any idea is a good idea at that point, right now. Let's put it all out there. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. And then, the community support partner opportunity. So are we referring that for the collaborative itself? Long-term support. So, so my thought is, annually we've been talking about this. The collaborative is kind of a new effort right now. It's exciting to be able to think, okay, if we're all at the table, we're trying to, I think it was, mentioned, reduce the conflict and, future objections and lawsuits. Really, let's all be at the table for with our intentions of really getting to the goals there. Yeah, we can talk about it this year. We've got a spreadsheet that we kind of lay out every year for these community partner investments, and if this is the will of the board, it could give you a little bit more runway, more clarity on that. So,
Katie, I have another question. You said you do have low-interest loans, and I was wondering, what is the interest rate and what is the maximum amount are these for farmers then, that they can borrow in order to upgrade their systems?
Mm-hmm. So actually, COID is just launching a low-interest loan program that we could dovetail some of this money into. So you want to speak?
Yeah,
to that?
so COID has sold properties over the years, and they've chose to set aside $250,000 at 3.5%. And if you're a farmer in good standing with your rate, paying your rates and duties, then we would consider $2,000 per acre, up to $2,000 per acre, up to $20,000 as the max, to buy new sprinkler systems and have those put on, and then it would be a 3 to 5 year loan, whatever you chose, and it would be associated with your farm. So if you sold your farm, you'd have to pay off the loan.
Great.
And if they had $40,000 or $50,000, this could go towards matching something. So that's where this ask becomes really important, because COID is ready to put skin in the game, and if there's extra money out there for some of these big projects, that would be great.
Yeah, I would imagine that these funds could be used to leverage EQIP dollars from NRCS as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would be remiss not to mention our friends back here with the Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District you'll hear from next, it sounds like. So when we're talking about doing this work, it takes someone on the ground working with the landowner to do that. And so that's what these folks are so good at. So this would actually support our collective work. But yeah, absolutely, the NRCS EQIP dollars would be a great match for this funding. And if it's okay, Commissioner DeBowen, just following up on your comment with the collaborative being new, the name is new, but the effort has been going on for a long time. And to date, the DRC actually really acts as the fiscal agent for the collaborative, and so we're all set up to do that. At this point, it's not like you have to create a new nonprofit to be able to invest in that effort.
Well, and you started off with, Deschutes River Conservancy and a long history, 20 more years, trying to kind of hold off that direct conflict, because allocation of water was known to be an issue many years ago. So, no, I understand that history, too, and we all should understand that. There's been a long-standing effort in Central Oregon in this water basin to be partners and work together on this whole big picture.
And there's recognition both around the state and really across the western United States of the model efforts here in the Deschutes Basin, the upper Deschutes Basin.
Yeah, and if I might, Commissioner DeBowen, I think you were asking in the beginning, I was over here fiddling with technology about legislation given this current year. And so one of the big pushes you're seeing at the state level with the House Water Committee, largely driven by Representative Owens in the Harney County, but also Representative Helm, is really a regionalization focus for water, because water law is so rigid that a one-size-fits-all approach really doesn't work. The Deschutes Basin is really far ahead on understanding how we would do it if we had a little flexibility, and so we believe that those efforts in that House Water Committee are gaining momentum and will culminate in a working group over a couple of years to come prepared to sort of present a pilot or two to the legislature to consider more flexible management at the basin scale, and we're pretty confident that the Deschutes would be that model. So again, having that all ready by the time we get to the point where we could actually pursue that is one of the reasons the collaborative right now is so important.
I think that was Commissioner Chang's questions as we were talking in the back there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Good
but
question, Commissioner.
But that's good.
we-
Okay.
We've been tracking some of the water bills
Yep.
this session.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. You really do put it in perspective, and the community as a whole needs to understand this big effort. It's long-term. It's been many years from the past, and it's going to be, 30 years into the future, but it's really 100 years is our horizon, yep.
And-
Great.
So much
And
for
the-
the.
Yeah, I would just say, so our process for determining how we're going to allocate out the ARP dollars is evolving. But the other piece, though, that I would actually look to Tom to maybe give us a sense of process is for new community, for consideration of those new community service partners. What is we went through a kind of high-level budgeting process for the coming fiscal year maybe a month ago, and how do we and we actually allocated some funds for sort of new community service partnerships possibly. What is our next steps in terms of converting that to actual allocations?
Well, Commissioner, we actually don't have a formal process for that. New community service partners have been added here and there over the years, more on an ad hoc basis. We don't have a formal solicitation, but you are correct in that there was money set aside in the most recent process for flexibility, primarily for the board to consider that. I know Laura took that on as a to-do following the discussion that we had with the board, so I'm imagine that we will have some sort of process that we will bring back to the board that will propose to make opportunities available for either the DRC or others in the community that the board may wish to consider. So the books aren't closed yet on FY22 allocations, which is lottery money, as you know. The rest may not, but so I think between now and the end of the year, before we put the finishing touches on the FY22 budget, that opportunity should be made available.
Do you picture that we should ask the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative for like a written request or a proposal or of some sort, or?
Probably it would be best so we don't duplicate any effort. We'll make sure that they are on the list for receiving that invitation to propose when that comes out, which again should be fairly quick since we'll be making decisions next month on the budget. So I've already made a note here to follow up on that, and we have Kate's contact information, so we'll make sure that opportunity is made available to them here in the next probably couple weeks.
Great, thanks, Tom.
So my thought along those lines is just like Commissioner Chang mentioned, a little bit of documentation about if it's for the Water Collaborative, is the River Conservancy the fiscal agent, and is it an effort of the River Conservancy? What would the paperwork? Who do we write a check to, and then who's going to be dispersing the dollars? Maybe just a little bit of clarity on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get together with COIC and sort that out and get that back to you.
Yeah. I guess it's as simple as that. Who's a check written to? For what purpose?
Yeah,
and
well,
how is it accounted for?
I mean, if we want also a little bit more of a justification.
Well, I'm just thinking that's part of it.
Yeah,
I mean.
but the mechanics are important too, definitely.
Great. Thank you very much. Very important topic at this point in history, obviously.
All right, and if you have any questions, Kate, myself are always available, so's Adam and Scott.
Yeah, really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll look forward to seeing that letter about the drought declaration as well.
I don't look forward to
Well, no, not really.
Well.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, that
The
is-
reality of
Yeah, I don't.
What it is.
I'm not excited that we have to have it, but if we need a drought declaration, I'm excited to get it done.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item number 2, is Soil and Water Conservation District update. So kind of along the same lines, but we're going to include soil in this one.
And other ways of interfacing with the private landowners in the county.
So we do have a copy of these slides also, and then we're working on bringing them up.
In the meantime, could I bring up?
Sure. Yeah, we got to practice being in public meetings again, huh?
This is what we are.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Oh, great, thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Can everyone hear me okay?
Think so.
Afternoon.
My name's Erin Kilcullen. I'm the District Manager for Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District, and this is my coworker, Todd Peplin. He's the Program's Lead and Planner for the district. And thank you so much for having us here today. We wanted to take this time as an introductory to our district, our current projects we're working on, where we see ourselves moving into the future, and just we really want to take this time to start a conversation with the county commissioners, start a relationship, and what that could look like in the future. So we'll go ahead and get started.
That's good.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you folks. It's a privilege. I really appreciate it. Commissioner DeBone, Commissioner Adair, and Commissioner Chang, really appreciate the opportunity. It's interesting when we talk about the SWCD because I know the SWCD back in the 90s. That's how old I go. And with Dennis Luke and the folks. And I think the SWCD, especially Deschutes, and probably all SWCDs around the state, is kind of the best kept secret because we really don't tout what we actually do and what we have done in the past. And it's amazing that when we start talking to folks, they basically say, really, you do all that? You work with private landowners? So, yeah, so I'm going to give you a little history lesson here a little bit. We start back in the Dust Bowl days, obviously, Hugh Hennett, Bannett, and what was going on in the Midwest. As soon as the dust came into Washington, D.C., Roosevelt did, act on that. And it wasn't until 1937 where he encouraged all governors to at least adopt legislation for a soil water conservation district. And the reason why he did that is because at first, prior to that, they said, government had the best way of doing things, and we're going to tell private landowners how to do it. Well, you can just imagine how that happened, right? But they needed somebody who's local, somebody who has well educated about going on in the local community, so then they would have a rapport and that trust, and then adopt those conservation efforts. And that's what the SWCD does. So in 1939, Oregon basically said, we will adopt legislation. And now, today, we have 46 SWCDs. Some counties have 2 SWCDs. We're fortunate to have 1, which is good. But ours was adopted in 1947. It was under Midstate. And if you look at that slide, it's really interesting. It wasn't until 1987 where it went from Midstate to the Deschutes SWCD. And I was a soil scientist at that time. And I remember that conversation and that legislation coming through. And it didn't register to me the importance and significance of that, because it was really having the Deschutes SWCD have that identity. Fast forward from there, just a little bit of FYI, Mackenzie Canyon, that pipeline, would not have been done if it wasn't for the Deschutes SWCD, where we had R.L. Freeborn and we had Hanson and at the time Patricia Gainsforth and all. And they actually had meetings over there at the Three Sisters Irrigation District. It used to be called Squaw Creek Irrigation District. And I don't know, you go right by it, the little shack that's right on the corner of Holmes Road and that highway to Sisters there. That little shack was the irrigation district, believe it or not. And it was that night that the district board, the irrigation district board, had a discussion about what the next steps were. And lo and behold, in 1996, things got moving. And at the time with NRCS, it was SCS at the time, Soil Conservation Service, we started doing survey work with the old level and the whole 9 yards on that. And look at it today, right? So without the SWCD, we are lousy people at getting the word out, I think, but we're getting better and better. So next slide. So what is the Deschutes SWCD? Since we have been kind of in the shadows, if you will, what is our mission? And our mission is quite simple. We promote the management, the wise use of our natural resources. We teach landowners, we educate them, we have technical assistance where we actually go on the ground, we do the inventories, we develop conservation plans, we talk to them about alternatives, and we move out from there and try to hook up different funding sources. Our funding sources come from various places that Aaron will probably talk to you about. So that's where we go. But then the thing is okay, so there's your mission, all right, so how do you get it done? So if we can have the next slide. So you've seen this slide before, and the first thing that we do is every annual, during the first fiscal year or somewhere in there, we start looking at the demographics of Deschutes County. And we start looking at what is actually happening to Deschutes County, and I can rest assured you guys know exactly what's happening. So just to give you an idea, in 2012, we had less farms than we had in 2017. So why is that? Because of a lot of subdivisions is what's happening. Our average acres were a lot more. They were over 1,000 acres. It's not anymore. It's only 941 acres. With our mean, the majority of our acreage out there is 11 acres. And if you look at the private land holdings out there, it's only 21% of is private lands. And that's being subdivided. So what happens? Because everybody loves our county, which is great, but it taxes a lot of things to our natural resources. In other words, we got more population. We have more subdevelopment. We have more recreation. We have more people that want to put an animal on a small parcel of ground. We have more demand on our irrigation than ever before, as you've heard with the DRC and Central Oregon Irrigation District. What does this do to our natural resources? Well, we start looking at a lot of things dealing with more water that we're utilizing. We got runoff issues. We got just a lot of impacts on the natural resources, and especially in the forested areas, where now we got a lot of development within the forest areas. So how do we go about and addressing those? So the next question is, when the SWCD starts looking at the demographics of things, then they start looking at what is the impacts to those natural resources. So next slide. So this gives you an idea of what the 6 high-priority natural resources are that Deschutes SWCD is looking at. Obviously, one, water quantity is the big one. And again, it deals with a lot of demands on the system, both for recreation, wildlife, and agriculture. And agriculture happens to be a big one. Most of the work that we've been working with private landowners on is a lot of the infrastructure, improving irrigation systems, converting those floods to sprinkler, or even if those people that have flood do not want to change because it's a shift in paradigm, we can look at other alternatives that will at least utilize their flood systems in a more efficient manner. The other is water quality. And a lot of things with water quality people look at, they always think of sloughing of, the sediment going into the Deschutes, or sloughing of going into White's Creek, or whatever. It really deals with inadequate irrigation systems, too. You got flood systems that we're working on to convert, where you have inputs like nutrients, you have inputs on animals, those types of nutrients, pesticides, whatever, and you have leaching and runoff. And those actually can go out into our waterways, or worse yet, go into the canal systems. And that gets traveled down. And those are the ones that we want to mitigate a lot. So water quality is a big one. Forest health has always been on this radar screen, but I think it's been in the last 5 years that has been so prevalent because of climate change that we, as the Deschutes SWCD, has been really going forward in looking at the forest aspects. We joined partnership with NRCS and the Joint Chiefs Initiative in South County, and we plan to stay on South County because there's still a lot of work to do. However, we also are working up there in the Sisters area. But all in all, the bottom line is what we want to do is prevent catastrophic fire from happening here. And so with Project Wildfire, we try to be as integral part in helping with Alex and Ed Keith and all out as best as we can with the private landowners. The other is plant condition, plant health, and invasive species. And what we look at that is we're looking at, sure, how can we be better stewards on our pasture situation or our haylands to reduce the amount of weeds and weed carry. But people think, when they think of Deschutes County, for some apparent reason, it stops at Bend. I'm sorry, we have Brothers, Hampton, and we got Milliken, we got everybody out east, and that's a lot of rangeland out there. And so we have to start being cognizant about that. So the Deschutes SWCD, in conjunction with Crook County SWCD, we're working on a lot with the sage-grouse issues, which gets into the wild habitat. We look at sage-grouse as in the rangeland and ecological site conditions, but we also look at the upper reaches. So we're looking at the spotted frog, Little Deschutes area, because there is a lot dealing with forest health and that watershed out there, that if we can maintain and hold that water up there long enough, and we can at least have more sufficient flows in the Deschutes. So we are looking at those. Also, because of the population, we have fragmentation going on in Deschutes County because of the population. So what is it to work with private landowners when they're looking at doing forest, either forest health, or we're looking at doing pasture management or all? We have that conversation. What can we do to better the conductivity of maybe winter deer range or elk crossing or whatever it is? But we help the landowner educate and make those decisions that would help the wildlife and also get productivity on the land. And of course, domestic animals. I mean, as an ex-4-H'er and FFA'er, I am accustomed to livestock and all, and it's just fun to see kids grab their cow or their sheep or their goats. However, the acres are on 2.5 acres or 5, and then they want to expand their herd. Now we have a little bit of an issue because it takes a lot of resources to keep those pastures going and a lot of management. So those are the things. So after looking at the demographics, after taking those demographics, seeing what is going on with the natural resources, the next question is, what have we done in the last 10 years? So I'll take the next slide. And we monitored what has happened in the last 10 years with the Soil Water Conservation District, and this gives you a pie chart of where our technical expertise, our funds, our education has gone to. And as you can see, the majority is water quality and water quantity in there, and only 5% is forest health. But let me tell you, this is past, 10 years. And so we can see kind of that trend, and I still see that trend going, but where do we go from there? And I think we'll see that that forest is going to be looked at quite intensely. And at this time and point, I'm going to dovetail it over to Erin because she's going to take that the next step up.
Yeah, so Todd did a great job outlining the resource concerns that our district addresses. So now I'm going to go over specifically how we've addressed those resource concerns. So for forest health, like Todd mentioned, we've worked with the Joint Chiefs Initiative down in South County, and that's work to reduce hazardous fuels, reduce wildfire intensity, and improve the overall health of the forest, wildlife habitat. We have some great success stories that if you'd like to see, I can send links to you. They're on the NRCS website of specific projects that we've helped landowners do, thinning projects, and just how fast you can see the success and improvements on their land is really great. We've also worked on Indian Ford Creek, so out in Sisters, it's a tributary to the Waichus Creek. And so with all the work that's being done there with the Watershed Council and other entities, there's a lot of focus in that area, and Indian Ford is a great area that we've worked on, and I also think continues to need a lot of work. So we've worked with specifically 4 landowners on that project, and we've removed rock dams to increase the flow. We've worked to remove reed canary grass, create fencing for the livestock along the river to stop erosion, which has been really great. And like I said, I think there's so much more work that can be done there. And also a new thing that we've been working on is urban agriculture, which I think can also have so much more work to be done within the county. As we've discussed, it's becoming more urbanized. So currently I'm working with the Environmental Center, and we're working with we're still in the beginning stages of this project, but we're working with school gardens and soil health workshops. So we're working with all the schools in Deschutes County, actually Jefferson County and Crook County that have school gardens, to work with teachers to develop garden and soil health workshops with them, and to give stipends for soil amendments for their schools, and also doing some pollinator plantings. And then as Todd, a big part of our district is irrigation water management. So we have lots of partners with that. We work with DRC, the irrigation districts. Our big role in that is we're a great middleman liaison between a lot of our partners. So we work very closely with NRCS. As these piping projects and these modernization projects continue, these landowners really need a lot of help to make their on-farm efficiencies and improve their systems. So we work hand in hand with the landowners to help them with funding opportunities available through NRCS and other avenues to help implement those projects. So we provide a lot of technical assistance. And I'll quickly go over kind of how we're currently operating. So this kind of outlines our current grant income for the district. We work closely with Oregon Department of Agriculture, and that's where a lot of our funds come through. It's a partnership with OWEB as well. We've received grants through the National Association of Conservation Districts, and that funding comes available through NRCS as well. And then we also have a grant directly through NRCS and OWEB for technical assistance. And that technical assistance is going to be helping the Joint Chiefs, the current Buttes to Basin project. We've already done a big outreach to 28 landowners and are working with approximately 10 landowners we're currently working with to help them sign up for EQIP contracts to start implementation on the ground for their properties. And then we've also, currently we're finishing up a feasibility study, but Oregon Water Resource Department, we've done some feasibility studies with them for some irrigation projects as well. And moving forward, this is where I could see our district is the Joint Chiefs is currently ongoing. It's a 3-year project. I think we will continue to be involved in that and helping NRCS sign up landowners. I think the great thing about Joint Chiefs is it crosses boundaries. So we're actually pulling together Forest Service land, public land with private land. You have so many large private landowners in this county, even smaller landowners, where the prescribed burn or the treatments, they should cross boundaries. So I think that's a really great project that we're going to help implement. And then the RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program that Kate discussed earlier, we're working with them to work with landowners on farm to improve their irrigation efficiencies, and that funding comes through our National Association Conservation District, TA funds. And then also with Oregon Department of Agriculture, on Indian Ford, the work that we did there was through an SIA, which is a strategic implementation area to help improve agricultural water quality. And there's been top discussions of having an SIA in the upper Deschutes and little Deschutes areas, so working with all agriculture producers along those stretches of rivers. And then wildlife habitat restoration projects, like Todd discussed, sage grouse in eastern part of the county. We're working with Crook County to cross boundaries as well. A lot of the large landowners in eastern Deschutes County cross boundaries with Crook County. So really working together so that both districts are able to help those landowners with wildlife habitat improvement projects. Also in Tumalo, the mule deer winter range is high on our list to start outreaching to landowners. That improvement projects could possibly be aspen restoration, juniper thinning, clearing understory. And then we also work with a small grant program through OWEB. So that is allotted to each watershed within the state. Through COVID, it got a little weird with the funding, as everything else did. So hopefully in the next biennium, starting this July, each watershed is allocated $100,000, and that's for small grants. And each small grant is a specific project on a landowner property up to $15,000. And the high priorities for that are riparian restoration, water quality, irrigation efficiencies, upland process, urban impact reduction. So the sky's the limit for the small grants. It's a great program. And I just want to highlight our main partners. We work very closely, and we really rely on our partners to get a lot of our work done and our funding. So NRCS, OWEB, Project Wildfire, ODF, the Watershed Council, Oregon Department of Agriculture, Deschutes River Conservancy, all 5 of the irrigation districts within the county, and then OSU Extension.
So one question, what does typical support or project activities look like from Soil and Water Conservation District's staff point of view? You know, because I understand there's a board and it's elected and we have this in the county, we want to do good things, but when you say we do a project, what kind of actions or activities happen at the district?
So a lot is technical assistance. So talking.
Yeah, so if I can kind of see where you're going on it.
Well,
It's
so
more like-
for forest health, we
Sure.
see a picture of a forest floor cleaned up. What is the steps from Soil and Water Conservation District? You know, do you say, well, let's target these 10 property owners, private, let's, you know, make a connection, and this is me extrapolating what I think might happen, make a connection, do the outreach, explain the value of doing something, maybe offering dollars or not, and then having a subcontractor or the property owner do something? I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, it is, because that's part of the strategic plan that we have to work with. So as our long-range plan, we start looking at what is, you know, where's the targeted area that we're going to be looking at. It's just, you know, for like forest, for instance, it's usually we kind of piggyback on some things with like the Joint Chiefs where there's an area of interest where then we can go in, talk to the landowner, look at landowners in general, look at what can be done, do workshops if need be, education, get inventories, plans, people on the ground, and then, yeah, within that, it's a plethora of, are we going to use, are they in the bounds of, let's say, the Natural Resources Conservation Service Environmental Quality Incentives Program? Or is it something that we can use the small grants program with because it's dealing with watershed health and water quality? So yeah, that's how that.
Finding ways to fund
Exactly.
the priorities that have been
Exactly.
evaluated.
Mhm.
And then along Indian Ford, I started in June, so this was before my time, but we worked on this a little last summer, but the district did do a lot of the on-the-ground work for that project.
Right.
The old programs lead.
Yeah, inventories and planning and actually contracting, believe it or not, on that one.
Yeah.
Now, if you go South County, we also have partnerships with Klamath. So our counterpart, SWCD, they just can't do North County. So we'll be working with RD and Echo from Walker Range to even further that down to Gilcrest and Chemalt. Because it just makes sense that if something happens, it's coming our way, so you might as well work with them. Another thing with like pipeline projects, okay, so irrigation, just like Kate said with DRC, we're actually in a group with them talking with, the boundaries that the DRC, Deschutes River Conservancy, has been working on with Central Oregon Irrigation District on the Resource Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP, what you hear. That's where then we can start looking at our talents and start talking to landowners on these private areas and getting the interest to do infrastructure on these private laterals or improve their irrigation systems just on farm. So that's ongoing for COID for sure. We're definitely engaged, but we're also definitely engaged with the other 4 irrigation districts doing irrigation water management plans, and also SID, working with them to improve some of their delivery, Arnold Irrigation District as well. But yeah, it's not just kind of a dart throw, if you will. There's a strategic area of interest that we have to, focus on of high priority, because dollars are short, and yet you want the best bang for the buck. Yeah. And partners that help you along, too.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. So I kind of just discussed where we're currently at, and this is where I see ourselves next 5, 10 years, 50 years, the district. I think the sky's the limit for the district. I've been in contact with a lot of other districts around the state, and I think we are very unique, Deschutes County, compared to a lot of other counties within the state. We're not pure agriculture in Deschutes County. So I think not only reaching out to local producers and private landowners, there's a lot of communities within Deschutes County that could use education and assistance with natural resource concerns. So I just kind of laid out here some future strategies that I see for the district. I think a big thing is increasing partnerships, just keeping the relationships growing and at the capacity of the districts. Currently, it's Todd and myself. We have 7 board members, and then we also have a part-time temporary employee, so I'd love to see the capacity of our district enhance. Continue working in forest health, reducing fire risk, continue irrigation conveyance water savings, Indian Ford, Upper Deschutes watershed function and health. With the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan, there's a lot of attention being put on the Upper Deschutes, and there are a lot of private landowners up in that area that I think could use a lot of help as well. Like I discussed earlier, urban agriculture. I think there's a lot more projects that could be done within the county with community gardens, working with local farms. We have a manure exchange program. If you look at our website, it's really a great opportunity that I don't think a lot of people know about. So really advertising that or trying to communicate that between different producers. Continuing wildlife habitat management and weed management. We don't currently have a weed program. I think a lot of our, not a lot, I would say some of our projects incorporates weed management within them. I would love to see a full weed management program or working with the county on working with that, and then marketing ourselves just so we get our name out there and what available assistance we're able to provide to counties and producers and landowners within the county is a big thing, that a big strategy of mine I see for the district as well.
Keep in mind, I just want what Aaron was saying about the weed program is we're already on the weed board with Ed, and so that's really key. It has been very instrumental in getting and collaborating with partners on that. So again, like Indian Ford, taking a look at those areas in a holistic watershed approach, there's some opportunities in there that we brought up to the weed board over there, and we're starting to kind of collaborate with the U.S. Forest Service on some things that may come to fruition that could bring about, you know, a little bit more strength to our weed program, if you will.
So I got all kinds of ideas flowing here real quick. Pardon me, I'm going to go through a couple of them. So you mentioned the manure exchange program. I always wonder about the pH of soil and manure and how it all goes, and you mentioned you're a soil scientist. Oh, man, just a community, maybe a simple website of how do you measure pH in a simple fashion and understanding what an optimal way to do that and how much manure is the right amount to mix in with volcanic ash soil where I live. So, I mean, I've got all kinds of questions about that.
That's good. That's what we want to hear, because
Yeah.
we think we put on the right information on our website, and I don't think so.
Well, I'm just so, personal. Looking at the back of the seed package, and it says, it likes high or low pH, this and that. I'm like, no idea. Let's put them in the ground and hope for the best. So, but we might be able to really figure out what's going on pretty quick. Noxious weeds, knapweed is something it's kind of out there, in southern Deschutes County in the residential areas. There's some places it's pretty aggressive. And then, one property owner can clean it up, but it's kind of wrapping around other properties. And these are the 1 acre lots in southern Deschutes County. And we know that. I've been advocating for it for a long time, and we have weed pulls, and I've taken cases of yellow bags of southern Deschutes County. But really getting that clarity, because right now you see these, the brown last year's weeds are standing up tall right now that haven't been pulled. And, they're just propagating in some areas. So, and, that's serious business. And then also, if we crossed paths with this concept the other day, is biomass. What about biomass plant? As in, if we're going to clean up the forest, we're going to have truckloads or mountains of biomass, in whatever form. It could be in all kinds of form. Maybe there's a discussion about is advocating for a combined heat and power, something to use these BTUs that are going to go up naturally. So I'm just saying, I'm kind of leaning, when we talk about an ARPA project, maybe there's a way to advocate for that, because then there becomes a little cycle of value, instead of burning a slash pile or trying to find some plant far away or saying that it's, see, that's CO2, pointing to it and say that's CO2. But yeah, it's one way or another that 100-year cycle of CO2 from the trees is going back to the atmosphere. So maybe there's value in there somewhere. So I'm sorry, I started making notes, so I wanted to share all that stuff as we were talking here.
That's a perfect,
Yeah.
right, and rightly so, because working with RD and Farm Services Agency, where they had the BCAP program, which is biomass, and trying to do that. Got a little out of hand with Farm Services Agency just because the chip market went way down.
Yeah.
But still, to advocate and have other types of sources that can be utilized, creating jobs, getting the biomass out of the private land, situation, reducing fire hazards, it's a win-win, and it does need to be something happening on that. Yeah.
Well, and there's
good point.
There's a big effort to close the coal plant. And coal and oil are pretty ancient forms of, fuel or whatever. But I mean, as I say, I think of a 100-year cycle in carbon is a lot different than 10,000-year cycle that we're maybe disrupting. So we shouldn't be too afraid of combusting forest waste. This is my thought. So.
I just, keep in mind, I just want to reiterate this again, is, the SWCD, we're not regulatory, we're not, environmentalists or anything. What we're right here for is to help the landowner. And if we can educate them to get them off dead center, to show them that, there are avenues or alternatives to help with a resource out there, that's a win-win. And if we got multiple landowners, then we're talking about additionality. And you're right, especially with the chips and the forest. I'm still trying to shoot for South County. That's why I need to talk to you, Commissioner DeBone, because I know you're down
We played phone tag, yep.
Oh, yeah. And I've talked to Ed several times, and there's some areas that it's like, I'm not giving up on those guys yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. Just sharing some excitement on a few topics.
Yeah, we just need to keep looking for those economically viable outlets for that forest biomass.
The other thing that I find interesting is that the University of California out of Davis had a study with running cows, And I saw the pictures from Baker County in 2014 when they actually ran cows on one side of the fence and everything wasn't incinerated, and how worthwhile it was. They were saying this for California. Now, in Deschutes County, I don't think, does anybody even run cows here? I mean, we do our prescribed burns, but, you know, does anybody run cows in the forest in order to keep that underbrush down? And, you know, actually you can graze cows in the summer. My family does it in Eastern Oregon, where they, you know, rent Forest Service land. But, yeah.
Southern Deschutes and out to, Davis Lake and all. I mean, this used to be the grazing area, but now the small diameter trees have taken over, so there's no light in the understory, so there's not a lot of grass anymore.
Well, it's really sad.
Really changed in 100 years.
Yeah, that's really what we would have allowed to happen. So anyway, that's something that I think, you know, and I used to buy hay from somebody who had a noxious weed sign by the road. That was the worst hay I bought in Deschutes County. I would put bags of weeds in, and I go like, well, somehow I think we need to get more credibility to that program, honestly and truly. I think it's really important. And yeah, I just thought that was kind of fascinating that the farmer I bought the hay from with the sign, no, it was the worst hay. So.
Hay for sale, here's some napweed, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was really it wasn't good hay. So anyway, you know, I would really appreciate that program being truly what it means. If you're going to have a sign up, you have clean hay.
Right. You know, speaking of that too, with in the past, you know, Deschutes SWCD actually did do the Taylor Grazing Act stuff, and now Ed does that. And I know just recently we've been talking and hooking up different folks so Ed can be really cognizant of that, you know. And but yeah, we're starting to be a little bit more partners with that one, just so we can get a lot more, I guess, producers to them, so it's not a burden, if you will. So.
I just want to, since we're getting into the discussion part of the presentation, I wanted to ask, how many private landowners are there in Deschutes County? Do you guys have a sense of that? One of the statistics in here was the number of new farmers and ranchers, but I mean, what fraction of the properties, what fraction of the farmers and ranchers and small woodlot owners are the new ones?
That's a good question, considering Deschutes County is on an average growing 3% each year, just about.
Right.
It's scary.
And you talked about how the number of farms is going up and the size of the farms is going down. So.
Correct. Yeah, because there's what I think 941, if I'm not mistaken.
It was something like that. Yeah.
And what percentage of that? That's, you know, that's a good one, because when you start talking about, and that's agricultural based, so when you're talking about total populations, I don't have a good handle on that. We could get, you know.
Yeah, or just kind of the rural parcels, like farms, ranches, small woodlots. You know, do you have any sense of how many landowners we're talking about? And one of the reasons I ask is because that's, I mean, if that's your business to engage with landowners, private landowners, and help them with their soil and water conservation goals, then, you know, if that number is steadily increasing, then your capacity to work with those people has to also be steadily increasing to keep up, or, you know, or not fall too far behind. And I mean, the amount of work that you accomplish is, you know, I just wanted to say it's very impressive, and the range of things that you're working on, from weeds to water to forest health to, you know, helping people, you know, grow produce, grow livestock is really impressive. But, you know, my concern is about, you know, organizations that provide important services in our community having sufficient capacity to do their job as well as they'd like, and as well as, you know, could benefit our community.
It's interesting, Commissioner Chang, because it's a twofold thing. It's like you said, is you got new people coming in, you got subdevelopment coming, okay? So within the subdevelopment, I remember back when we used to have more than 25% was agricultural land. Now it's down to like 19. I mean, it is dropping because everything's being surrounded out here and we're subdividing or we're having more development. Now, to say if it's good or bad, great for economy, great for businesses. However, if
just
Deschutes wants to maintain their green space and their farming, then, boy, you're right. Then it puts a pressure on the Deschutes SWCD in that, yeah, now we got more people, and you're right, capacity-wise. Aaron just rattled off a bunch of grants that we have had. I mean, this is phenomenal for us. And we're already looking at capacity, building up our capacity, because most of them from Natural Association of Conservation Districts, sorry. They're the ones that are pushing that additionality. So how can we get the forest folks? We got to get capacity, which that's what we're looking at. How are we going to address the people with confined feeding operations? Because that's what's going to happen. From a guy that has cows, and I got to go to 5 different places where all my red Angus. Yeah, it's a little bit of a nightmare there. But so you're right. You're taking care of. You have less farms, more people, more impacts to the resource. A lot more people that'll need help, and we've seen it because we've been working with OSU this last field day with the pivots. We did a pivot field day here in Deschutes County, and that was really good. It was attended with 25, 30 people on a Wednesday. And you could see that some of them knew, some of them didn't know irrigation. Some of them wanted to find out. So yeah, your point's well taken, and with the board and the SWCD, that is a discussion point that we are really looking at seriously on capacity.
Yeah, and I wanted to go from that thought of, okay, is there enough capacity at the SWCD to get, to do as much of this good work as there's demand for in the community? I wanted to step from there to the concept of SWCDs that have a dedicated tax assessment and SWCDs that don't. Because my understanding is there's something in the range of 45 or 46 SWCDs around the state, and about a third of them are, have an assessment. It could be a very small assessment, as little as 3 cents per thousand or something like that, but it gives them a certain amount of kind of core capacity to do the work that they need to do. And it's always easier to chase grants when you have a little bit of core funding, to actually pay for your hours to chase grants. So I guess, I wanted to, and I wish Commissioner Adair was here, but I wanted to float the idea that one thing that the Board of Commissioners, there we go. So I wanted to float the idea that one thing that the Board of Commissioners could consider doing would be supporting the Soil and Water Conservation District in exploring putting a tax assessment ballot measure before the voters. And again, it's with, we've seen the range of really valuable services that the Deschutes SWCD provides to rural landowners in our community. And we could, and we've also heard about, how the need for those services is expanding with, all these new farmers and all the, fragmentation of farms from 1 into 3 or 4 smaller farms. So the need to serve all those landowners is just going to keep increasing for the foreseeable future. And if we want to have good, good agricultural land use in our community, this is something that should interest us, in my opinion. I heard the story about how Clackamas County literally just went through this process of converting to, from a non-assessment based soil and water conservation district to an assessment based soil and water conservation district in like a decade or so ago. and what a huge difference it's made for them in being able to provide these really important services, that technical assistance, hand-holding to all the rural landowners in a county that I think is somewhat similar to ours in that fast-growing fragmentation of land, of large land ownerships into smaller, but and a real desire among so many of those people to continue to live rural agricultural lifestyles.
Well, yeah, so I haven't had a property owner come and say, man, if we could just tax ourselves for this service, it'd be great. So, I mean, it's,
Yep.
well, so you'd be the first, and I know, we've crossed paths many times over the years. But I'm just saying, I mean, there's a conversation there, and we would need to expand that for, who's asking for what to do what, so.
Yeah, and I mean, our job wouldn't be deciding whether those were services that people wanted to pay for or not. Our job could be giving the voters the opportunity to make that choice, and then leaving it to people who believe in the services of the SWCD to campaign the heck out of it.
And may I interject a little bit, is it kind of leads to this question, is what Aaron's put up, is I think that's a great discussion, but I think the SWCD is more looking towards what do we need to do to help, first of all, your missions out when you're out there and your constituents, and what can we supply with you, as opposed to also is what, things that could help us out in maybe doing that, assessment or something of that nature. But I think, I agree with you, Commissioner DeBone. It's like, well, hi, how you doing? Without knowing that we showed you just a skim of what we do.
Yeah.
And I would love to have you all out on a tour to show you everything that we do. It's phenomenal. But I think, it's just the question, the Deschutes SWCD has not been in this type of forum in a long, long time. And so it'd be really nice to know where the question is what can we do?
Well, and one of the things, I mean, I think of local agriculture, the locavore movement, small food production and distribution, which, I mean, anybody would just love to be able to do more of that, which is, the difference between large commercial agriculture and a national level, obviously. But the impacts to 1, 3, and 5 acre parcels, just like you're saying, and state land use doesn't allow a lot of parcelization, but there's still some parcelization that can happen. But I could see, if this is a trend that's really going to gain a little bit more, everybody could have a domestic well to do a little bit, feed a few animals and have a lawn, which would, if, the more that happens, the more it's just this other use of water. But then, did you mention confined animal standards or whatever? How would that look like on a small parcel? When does CAFO standards take, because we don't have a limit in livestock in Deschutes County either, large animals. We don't have limits for large animals in Deschutes County.
No, but we do have a ton of goat farms, goat cheese and stuff like that out towards me, out by Helmholtz area, that around there. But there are available now. We don't have the dairies that we used to have, let's say 25 years ago. But there are small animals that are being more and more accustomed to small acres. And then we have the right to farm too. And those things that we have to watch out about as well. But when the right to farm becomes a hazard to water quality, quantity, stuff like that, that's where ODA steps in, but we can step in as an intermediary to discuss options and what things can be done so they can still farm at a sustainable level.
Great discussions today.
I think the idea of a tour is great. I'd be interested in going out, but up to.
Well, I live on a farm, and I drive by a lot of farms going home, and I see a real difference, and it takes a lot of work And I saw what happened when a lot of people in Deschutes County put in hemp, and they did not understand that the people that really had the nice hemp fields actually were out there pulling the weeds by hand, and it took 1,000,000 hours in order to really have a really good crop. And then you saw what's happened with capitalism, and the price now has gone down, what, to $1 or something, $1 a pound. But seeing that, and now I'm seeing that those farmers this year are all cleaning up those fields. I mean, they are cleaning them up, and from what I'm hearing, they're going to be planting hay again. But then, of course, you know, you've got the water usage there. But no, definitely, I'd like to see. I know I've been with the food program that the Tejon girl has in Sisters. It's amazing. You know, on just, I think it's like 40 acres, and all the things that she raises there right outside of town. Phenomenal operation to see that. I just was at my friend's house. She put seeds in the ground on Saturday. Yesterday they were sprouting. I could not believe it. So, you know, but then.
Is there snow at Black Butte Ranch?
No, it's all gone.
All gone.
Finally,
Okay, good.
finally. Like there was just like one little teeny speck of it. Anyway, but you know, but our short growing season, really, what is it we can do unless we do a lot in the greenhouse? So yeah, it's pretty short. So yeah, set up a tour though. That would be fun, you know, to see what you can do. But I think it would be nice if we ran a few cows here, just to kind of start cleaning up again.
You can see my red Angus.
Oh, you have Red Angus. Okay. Okay, very sweet. Why not?
Yeah, and I do think that on a field trip, we could think about how the county's work and the SWCD's work intersect in some of these areas of your core work. I mean, you know, clearly on forest health work, we have Project Wildfire, and we've got a whole team that is focused on helping people get defensible space on their properties. But there's also potentially coming down the pipe state or local requirements for defensible space that are if we do that at either the state or the local level, it's going to take a whole lot of technical assistance to get our landowners across Deschutes County in compliance there. Wildlife habitat, you mentioned that you're taking a look at mule deer winter range, and that is the mule deer winter range is one of the 3 wildlife inventories that we're updating right now at the county, and so I can imagine hand in hand with communicating to the public that hey, you live in Primo mule deer winter range. There would be tremendous value in educational efforts to help people understand, you live in Primo mule deer winter range habitat, and here's all the things that you can do to optimize that for the wildlife. And so definitely each of these areas of work that you're involved in, I think that there's likely some significant county interfaces, and a field trip would be a great place to explore that.
Great.
Sounds like a
Well,
great idea. Yeah.
And Jeff, find a whole bunch more landowners that want to promote a tax base. Yeah.
No, to me, it was actually fascinating to think that a third of the COID people are still flood irrigating. As much as we talk about water in, Deschutes County and, our central basin, that a third of them are still flood irrigating. That's really fascinating. And, I think to have a study of, okay, how much would it take to get that third, doing irrigating on a better way? What is it really going to take? If they're only getting up to $20,000, that's really not very much money when you start buying sprinkler pipes.
Well, there's thousands of irrigators.
Right.
That's the issue.
Yes.
Please join us on a microphone if you want to. So this is Mr. Rollet, who is a board member.
Oh, and you should identify yourself for the record, too.
There you go. So COVID protocols are slipping away these days.
The two of them are still wearing masks.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff Rollet. I represent Zone 3, which is the Tumalo Zone. for the Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District. There's a couple of things that I want to just emphasize. We are fortunate to have Todd and Aaron on our staff. Aaron hasn't been here a year yet. June 1st is her year end. And yet we've been successful in getting grants that we've been competitive and successful in nationally. The Urban Agriculture Grant is the first urban agriculture grant given to the state of Oregon. The Two Chiefs initiative is unique. There's only about 12 in the nation that got that kind of funding, that long-term funding. So I'm bragging on them right now for that. But the other part of that is that we're limited in what the funders tell us what we can spend our money on. And so the charter for Deschutes, for a soil and water conservation district in Oregon is to address natural resource concerns. The authorizing language in the ORS statutes doesn't mention agriculture at all. But that's where our funding comes from. So that's what we do. So when you think about when Aaron says the sky's the limit, the sky is the limit in what we can do in addressing resource concerns throughout the county and addressing all landowners, not just agricultural landowners in that process. So that's the starting point of where I am in this. They can't get rid of me yet, so.
Oh, they wouldn't want to, would they?
But we can go a long way because we serve the private landowner in addressing those resource concerns on a voluntary basis. Those are the two tenets that we use. We serve private landowners and we serve them with voluntary cooperation. So we can enter into a contentious arrangement and find the way to get voluntary cooperation in those situations. And we've done that with pipeline projects like the Mackenzie and like a number of different pipeline projects where we've actually sat down with the irrigation districts and the landowners and helped them come to an arrangement. So those are the things we can do as a soil and water conservation district that don't show up on our balance sheet or on our annual plan that I believe is valuable, not just from a resource perspective, but from a human perspective of how we can get along and make use of the limited resources we have. And especially now with climate change coming in on us, we don't know what the water picture is going to be 10 years from now. So the Habitat Conservation Plan is doing some things for 30 years now, but we may not see the water come back the way we hope it would. And we're looking for other ways where we can augment that and accentuate it and make it better.
I believe I was looking at the Capitol Press, and they were saying that Washington State actually had adequate water and that the lower Deschutes Basin had adequate water. So, it's weird because it happened there, but it didn't keep coming down to us.
I think it's adequate is a relative term in terms of their snowpack or their flows at the time, and it can definitely be from a point in time perspective or from a location perspective. Yeah, it's good right now. Next week, maybe not. Next year, maybe not.
One of the other things to note about the lower Deschutes is that much of the lower Deschutes falls within Wasco County, where they have an excellent soil and water conservation district that is on an assessment and is one of the major accomplishers around the state, and they have helped to improve the water use efficiency of in agriculture all over Wasco County. So this is again, what I picture this ballot measure basically asking people is, hey, what would you think about adding $5 or $10 to your tax bill so that we can have cleaner water for our kids to play in and better habitat for the mule deer that we all care about, and better efforts at holding weeds at bay where they are, as instead of just letting them continue to just spread across our landscape, and safer forests, healthier and safer forests for our community. I mean, a couple bucks per thousand, a couple cents per thousand is really, it's a pretty modest ask for the kinds of benefits that could be accomplished, but. So
And
that'll be my.
mention that the latest Soil and Water Conservation District to get tax-based funding is Upper Willamette, and they just got it recently in 2020. And that election was held, and they took a chance on it, thinking that, it may not pass, but all of a sudden, on Labor Day, a fire broke out, and people were able to see the devastation that could come when natural resource concerns are left to languish, and they pass their tax base. So they come from mostly urban areas in the state, have tax bases for soil and water conservation districts because they value the resource benefits that they provide.
Well, so my thought is, what are the possibilities for getting on the ballot, though, also? I mean, is it,
Starts with a resolution from the county commission to allow us to do
but
it.
are other paths also?
I don't think so.
So we
Could it
could
be
look
done
into
through
that.
citizen petition measure, or?
No.
Yeah, so we could look into that. I mean, that'd be interesting to learn about what the paths are, because, I mean, this is a direct ask today, but, I mean, yeah.
Just
I'm not prepared-
just started the conversation.
Yeah, I'm just saying, well, let's learn about that.
I'm not asking right today.
Well, it's,
This is how it happens. There's a process, and the process goes through the county commission. And then it goes to a ballot.
well, as I say, my observation is it's a district. It happens to be a county footprint, but I don't know that it's I mean, if we have the authority to do it, is that the only path for it? I don't understand that. So we'll learn.
We could talk to the county clerk,
Yeah.
see if there's other pathways, but.
I can,
Well, and then as I say, I mean, I understand there's folks who would want this, but I mean, our property owners in, more than X. I mean, I don't know what number, but I mean, our property owners hearing this conversation at all, I don't know. And they would if it was on the ballot, obviously, but still, before that, let's understand the will of
well,
some people.
we view this as a long-term goal. We're not necessarily looking at 2022, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I do believe that that Upper Willamette group, that they did a community survey first, like a statistically significant survey of the base that would have to vote for the ballot measure, and just to understand whether people even knew what the SWCD was and what services they were providing, and just kind of gauging the appetite for, are you willing to spend some funds on on these services and these benefits for our community.
Oh, we
So-
realize that it's a long-term, present, educational effort that we're going to have to develop.
Well,
In the interim, would it be beneficial for you folks to have maybe a biannual or an annual report from the SWCD and accomplishments or something of that nature to at least see how things are progressing with us? Is that?
oh, yeah, that's fine.
Would be benefit
Yeah.
for you?
I had a great conversation with Erin, I think, for like an hour, about a month ago, and I was really glad to get to know her better and what you're doing. I know Jeff and a group of you came to my office in 19, I believe, pre-COVID, and yes, I do appreciate it, and I really think that a lot of people that are farmers do really want to do things correctly, honestly and truly, they do. I mean, my mom had her license to spray weeds. Now, I never use pesticides. I think they're disgusting. But, I know that they're a necessary evil when you have
But if your
hundreds
hay
of
has
acres.
weeds in it.
Yeah, if you have
hear about
hundreds of
it.
acres of weeds. Well, no, I mean, it's just like they let them go on and on and
I
on.
just- yeah.
Yeah, if you don't get rid of them, they're going to keep reappearing. So anyway, and I know Erin had her own little special weed patch she was talking about. So.
Bigger.
Oh.
Our whole property now.
Oh.
I didn't think I had as much cheatgrass until last week.
I know, it's all popping right now, so, well. Anyway, no, I think it would be excellent, Todd. I think that's a great thing. We need to hear more what you're doing because you are really important for our county's health.
And I think that's a big goal of our district, our board, our staff. It's obviously to make ourselves known to everyone within the county. I mean, obviously we can't do that to everyone, but a lot of the constituents within the county, in addition to the commissioners, is get our names out there, really showcase our accomplishments. And yeah, I think that's a big goal of mine as well.
And to that effect, we'll be issuing an invitation to the county commissioners for our annual meeting coming up.
Well, and I've attended a few over the years too, yeah.
Yes.
When is it?
June 17th.
Okay.
All right.
And it's a publicly noticed meeting, so we could all show up if we felt like it, right?
Of course we can.
And hopefully maybe we'll be able to do it in person this year.
For sure.
And
Oh, we will.
and I still like the tour idea.
I do too.
And I'm available for communication. You know, Todd, you and I did play phone tag, but let's all talk, yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. How about that for a good session on the topics today, water and soil and the big picture? Yes.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
So next item, consideration of a limited duration position for the Crisis Stabilization Center.
Hello, Commissioners.
So Holly, I got to ask you, what was your estimate on when you thought you'd be up this afternoon?
I'm a little off.
Well, I'm kind of off too, is my point. I thought those two conversations would be maybe an hour, not two. So.
No, well, it was very interesting, and
Oh, we just kept going, yeah. Which is fine. It was great conversation.
I learned a lot
Mhm.
about soil and water.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, Commissioners. Holly Harris, Program Manager, Deschutes County Behavioral Health, Crisis Services. And I'm here today to request approval for one limited duration, 13-month limited duration Behavioral Health Specialist 1, which is a case manager position to help support our day shift operations. And the way this came up, as you all know, we were awarded the IMPACTS grant, which was $2.4 million. And the rollout of that grant was a little clunky, mostly due to COVID. It just happened really quickly, but the money didn't necessarily come really quickly. A lot of contracting work had to be done on that grant. So as a result, we had a lot of personnel vacancy savings because the vast majority of that grant pays for staff to staff the stabilization center 24/7. So as we kind of worked to build up and hire all the staff, we had months of vacancy savings that added up really quickly. In addition to, we've had some vacancies just with the 13 staff that we hired over the course of the last year. And so in an effort to utilize those funds, we really have identified some needs that, we're learning every single day as we stay open 24/7, where our pressure points are, what support we need, and this was really an identified need that we had funds available to pay for through that grant. And so this position, case manager positions, they set people up with OHP, food boxes, housing resources, all of those things that I always tout that we do really well that emergency departments don't have the capacity to do. So it's that extra layer of support we provide people. We're doing a lot of it. And then in addition to that role, they would also have a role with our crisis intervention team training, so CIT. This is the 40-hour training we provide to law enforcement. Currently, we're only able to offer that training once a year because the coordinator for that team is in-kind contributions. We don't actually have a funded position to do the CIT training, so all the stakeholders in our community share the responsibility of putting that together and do in-kind contributions on that. And so having this position to help assist with all of the logistics of putting on a 40-hour training would allow us to do it more than one time a year, which would be a really great thing for all of our law enforcement officers.
Go ahead.
So would the person actually be delivering the trainings or like coordinating all the logistics to be able to do the training?
Yeah, primarily coordinating the logistics, which there are a ton of. There's, over 40-hour training, there's a lot of presenters and a lot of scheduling and also the snacks and all the things that you have to do to put on a 40-hour training. So they would primarily be helping with that, but they might also do some of the trainings because as we move to provide more than one a year, all of our presenters may not be available for all of the other trainings that we want to do. So we're going to have to get creative in how we're delivering the information.
So the paragraph does not make sense to me. I read it about 10 times. Fiscal implications. Due to the delays, there's a significant amount of personal vacancy savings. These savings will fully fund this position from June 21 to June 30th, 22. But then you're asking for this position with a cost of $96,000. Like,
Oh, I think you're right. Good catch, Commissioner Adair.
I'm like,
That should be, well, 96,000 would be for the 1 year. It's actually short 1 month. So my apologies on that.
no, but I mean, I don't understand. If you're saying you've got all these personal savings, then why are we looking at spending another $96,000?
That's from the savings. That's the savings amount that we have in the impacts grant that is unspent funds because they accumulated because of this vacancy savings.
Okay.
So that's the money we want to use to pay for this position. It's
We're going to use it for the savings within. We're not asking for an additional
Correct.
96,000.
We're not asking for any additional money.
Okay, that was not clear to me.
I'll make that more clear next time.
Yeah, I was like going, okay, what are we doing here? All right.
So for the training, CIT training, is it 40 hours? So how many people are usually attending?
It's usually about a class size of 30, and it's always, there's people on a wait list that want in. Only being offered one time a year. It's a critical training for our law enforcement.
So my thought is maybe let's take some time. I'd like to learn more about it, and I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know if it's either just sharing the agenda with us or, something, or.
You want to
Happy
go?
come and provide a presentation on just what CIT is.
Yeah, well, the scope of the training, I guess, is really what I was inquisitive
Happy to.
about.
Yeah, I'm happy to set another agenda time to make.
And the community would love to hear it too. So yeah, maybe it is a public meeting that we just lay it out and talk about.
Maybe we should sign up for it.
Maybe we should be taking the course.
Remember, we took
yeah.
Fire Free, and it was
Yeah.
a day training, so
Yeah.
why not?
It's a wonderful training, and if you can commit the time, I'm sure our partners would love to have your interest in that. It's an international model that we base it off of. It's called the Memphis model, based out of Memphis, Tennessee, and it's an international evidence-based model to train law enforcement on how to identify mental health issues that they may be encountering with the person they're responding to, and how to intervene differently, and also how to access resources to help support them in that interaction. And it reduces use of force for law enforcement, and it improves client experience during those interactions.
Yeah, so that's really.
I heard so much positive feedback about this training from now retired police chief Jim Porter from the city of Bend. Back in, I talked to him about it maybe a year and a half ago. And,
It was featured on several of the news stories. The last 2 days of the 40-hour training are scenario-based, so you actually, we have role players that enact somebody who might be experiencing a mental health crisis and what that would look like, and officers then role play how they might interact with that individual and practice the skills that they learned the previous 3 days.
So is this for Wednesday, or is this an action for today?
I believe, well,
think it's-
Tom might know better than I.
There would need to be an actual resolution from finance that would add the
This-
position to the, your complement for health services. Typically, that's done on the Wednesday consent. I don't know if it
Yep.
was put on there or not.
I don't know if it was put on there either.
Maybe for next week, but so we've talked about it, we understand the wording. So basically delay and impacts implementation, a little bit of revenue available, commitment for the next 12 months or 13 months, and a temporary position for now. I mean, yeah, we'll see what it looks like a year from now, too.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Holly.
thanks, Holly.
Item number 4, extreme risk business assistance funding grant distribution proposal. Greg Munn, and I see David Givings is joining us, and Scott Aycock. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Good afternoon again.
Yes, twice today.
Good afternoon, Board. For the record, my name is Greg Munn. I'm the County Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer. And I'm here obviously with David Givens and Scott Aycock. I'll kick this agenda item off and then I'm going to turn it over to Scott. So the purpose of the agenda is to discuss a distribution proposal for the extreme risk business assistance funding. And in terms of background, you might recall a couple weeks ago, it was actually April 30th, when Deschutes County was elevated to extreme risk. And in response to that, the state sent out $20 million to the 15 counties that were elevated to extreme risk on that day. And it was on a population-based allocation, so Deschutes County's share of that was $1.3 million. And we brought this to you on May 5th, and the board approved the grant amendment and the distribution of that $1.3 million through COIC.
Yes.
Who, might I add, that amendment, COIC actually distributed the $2.2 million of the main portion of the grant back in December. And the board asked for staff to return with a detailed distribution plan for consideration. So that's what we're here to do today. The actual cash, $1.3 million in grant funds, was received by the county on May 10th last week. And on May 11th, staff and COIC reviewed the proposed grant distribution proposal. And there were, David Givens was part of that, so was Whitney Hales. And since then, they fine-tuned it and are bringing it back to review with you today, right now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott Aycock. And Scott, I believe, is Jared joining you today?
I think Jared is observing. I'm just going to
okay.
do the presentation. Thank you.
All right,
So,
so turn it over to Scott.
Scott Aycock, Community Economic Development Director at COIC. And may I screen share? Is it
Yes.
allowed? Okay. So let's see if I do this right. There we go. I wanted to note that this is a quite similar program to the one that we partnered with the county on in December, essentially, of last year. So first, I'm kind of just remind you of the basics of the program and then go over the differences. And then there's a series of questions for you, and then finally a timeline. That's what I'm going to cover. So this is, again, these are the basic standards. This is the same as the last time around. These are the requirements, if you will, or the basic standards from the state of Oregon. Have to be headquartered in Oregon. If they are required to be registered, they have to have an active registration. That was a pretty big issue last time around, by the way. So we're going to try to get the word out to potential applicants very soon so that they, because they can get it updated in 24 hours. They have to be a for-profit entity or a 501c3. And then this last one's a little funny because the way it's worded, but during the performance period, the business incurred necessary expenditures due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. This one actually has another change, which I'm going to cover in just a sec. But anyway, we went around on this one last time around, and we were like, wait, incurred necessary expenditures, what about lost revenue? And so the state referred us to Treasury, which pointed to their FAQ, which defined that lost revenue was within that wording, even though it doesn't sound like it. But anyway, so, and I would say that's what the basis for most of the grants were, was not so much around extra expenditures as lost revenue last time around due to the shutdowns. And then ineligible entities would be passive real estate holding companies, nonprofits that aren't 501c3s, businesses that experience a decline in revenues for reasons not due to COVID-19, any businesses that are delinquent on taxes, that do not comply with laws, and that have closed and do not intend to reopen. And then this is the same as well as last time. These are not requirements. These were highly recommended priorities, I guess, from the state. So should be made available to anyone. They strongly encourage the 15 counties in this case to implement the grant program so that it targets one or more of the following types of businesses. So businesses with less than 100 employees, businesses within rural areas, or that identify as minority-owned, women-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, and emerging small businesses. And then nonprofit business entities that serve these minority populations. So again, I'm going to come back around to that in a minute, but just again, so there was before was the requirements. These are the recommendations. Here are some of the differences. Less money than last time. We don't have the same crazy rush to get it done as fast as last time, which obviously we want to get it done as quickly as possible. But it was a bit nuts last time around, and we don't have that. The timeline is the end of this year. Now, of course, of this calendar year, and of course, we're not going to get anywhere near that, but it just gives a little more breathing room. They also, in that section that I referenced a second ago, the necessary expenditures piece, then they just added this piece, which it doesn't require that it only be these businesses. So that's one of the questions I'm going to get to. But they just referenced that it's also those necessary expenditures, again, or lost revenue, incurred in response to grantees' return to an extreme risk level, the recent one on April 30. And so then again, if desired, there's sort of an intention there. It appears that the focus, because of which counties got the money, that it relates to that extreme shutdown. And so this would probably result in less applicants than last time, which is my guess, if we were to focus only on that group, and potentially, depending on how many, larger individual payouts to the grantees. So here's some things we learned last time. Rushing really fast early can lead actually to delays late. And so the good news is we've done it, right? So we don't have to rush too much. You'll see in a minute, we're planning on opening this on Friday of this week. So that's still pretty fast. We're going to do everything we can to require documentation up front with the application versus the follow-ups afterward that take weeks. People don't get back to us, even if it's contingent upon them getting the check. They can't get the check until they get us the forms. We're just tracking people down for weeks. Making sure that the data is really doesn't give a lot of leeway in terms of how they enter it, because we do all this complex sorting of spreadsheets. It needs to be if it's a number, it shouldn't be writing it out, which is what happened last time, or giving ranges or whatever. We need to kind of constrain that. We're trying to figure out how to allow them to save their work and return to the application, but so far we haven't been able to figure that out in a way that's going to be efficient, frankly. And we're also going to make it so that they can't hit the submit button if the application is incomplete. We've had anywhere from 40% to 70% of the applications incomplete across the 5 grant programs we did last year. We need to be as tightly coordinated, communicated among all parties, and using all the parties that are working on it. And I should note the partners, the core partners of the county, COIC, and then OSU Cascades provides a lot of the Innovation CoLab. They handle a lot of the digital sides of things and automation side of things. So we've created a couple of tools to be more tightly coordinated. And then the other partners are, outreach partners like again, the county and your public affairs officer, as well as chambers of commerce, small business development centers, all those folks. They, this time around, primarily are just kind of helping get the word out to their members. We also need to use very plain and simple language in the application. So here's the questions, and I'm just going to take them one at a time and see. I'll read them all and then just see, because they kind of interrelate a little bit, and potentially maybe stop my screen share for a sec just so I can see you and see what is the will of the BOCC today. So the first question is, do you want to only fund businesses that can demonstrate an impact from the extreme shutdown that started on April 30, so that week? And we've talked about asking them for either gross revenues or net revenues for that week compared to, say, the same week last year, something like that. And this is all self-reported, and then they sign something attesting that it's true rather than providing financial documentation.
But Scott, the same week last year, we were applying for the first phase, which went in May 15th, I believe. So, that's kind of an interesting issue. Do you make them go back to 19 when they could have had a normal?
Oh, yeah. Right.
It was still a shutdown then.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. So we'd have to figure out that how they, what the metric is that we're gathering here.
The other
question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the other real struggle I'm having with thinking about, only businesses that were impacted by those 4 days in the extreme is that, we were in high risk for, I can't remember how many weeks, but feel like we were in high risk for like a month before we went to extreme risk. And, if we're, especially since the extreme risk time window was so short, it seems like, just trying to help businesses that can show, a extreme risk specific hardship, it sort of ignores that. It ignores that, there were so many other businesses for the 3 or 4 or 5 weeks beforehand who may have been having real challenges with the high risk category.
Yeah, and it's entirely, this is why we're bringing these to you. It's entirely your decision how you want to proceed with that.
Yeah.
We can also do, preferences or extra points or something like that. But, in other words, not exclusively grant, but businesses that can demonstrate a direct revenue loss or extra costs related to that extreme would get some more points or a bump. I don't know. But it's really a question to you. Just the general question is, do you want to only have it be available to those that can demonstrate that, or have it be the broader pool?
So one of my thoughts is I'd like to say yes to this number, but I'd like to keep it simple too. So I think of restaurants and gyms, there could be a subset of service types that obviously it was a direct cause and effect to their business for an extreme shutdown. Commissioner Chang makes a good point. We were kind of in the version of that almost. Anyways, we didn't know. I mean, everybody saw the numbers going up, and it wasn't good, and people were taken out or slowing down or whatever. So
When I remember what Sherry Helt said about her, in order to open the restaurant,
Yeah.
they were spending $25,000 just to open it with your costs. So therefore, when you go to takeout and outdoor, there are some restaurants I know were clearly devastated when, the takeout is nothing hardly in comparison. And some people really don't have outdoor seating. Now, there's a few restaurants that have totally, their outdoor seating is amazing now.
Yeah.
Because of everything that's happened.
Yeah.
So there's those two extremes.
But I would think that those restaurants that were doing okay with a certain amount of takeout and a certain amount of outdoor seating during high risk, the blow wouldn't be as severe during the extreme risk either. I'm not sure.
yeah. So my vision would be to say yes to extreme risk direct impact, and keep it real simple with like 3 tiers of payments. Like, I don't know exactly what, but $500, $2,500, or $5,000, or some number, and just being able to back it up somehow with the revenues instead of trying to and maybe show gross revenues down as a justification, but put it in just a big step, instead of trying to scale it for everybody.
So anybody who meets the state's standards and requirements would be eligible, but there would be a prioritization for those who in some kind of way can demonstrate a particular impact from the extreme categorization.
But any food service, indoor dining that got shut down hard, and any gym or exercise facility that was just shut down hard.
Or like a museum, I guess, or
Yeah,
movie
I'm
theater.
saying exercise, but whatever it was, yep.
Venues, yeah.
Does that sound okay to the full BOCC? Should I move on to the next one?
Yes. I mean, we have people
Well-
that have lost $500,000. So giving
I
somebody
know.
$500 is really
But,
That
yeah,
doesn't even pay
Yeah.
to fill out the form.
and now is the time. I mean, spring is sprung, and people are going to be moving around, and we're going to be able to go out to eat. So, basically, my thought is, get a check X amount and move on, instead of trying to make it more complicated than.
I was trying
Simple
to,
is good.
I was trying to think about, the number of businesses in environmental health.
1,600.
Yeah. And, yeah, so.
$850 divided by 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is,
Okay.
yeah.
1.3 million divided by $1,600, $812.
Yeah.
It's a big
I
number.
did that last week when we
Yeah.
were sitting here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like really,
But that puts a scope to it, though, doesn't it? So that's
Say only 1,000, actually pursue this, then still $1,300.
There's a couple more questions here that might, depending on what you decide to do, limit the pool. So, maybe I should cover those really quick. So there's the last time we hardwired into the ranking process, using the state recommended language in terms of prioritizing the women and minority-owned groups, businesses, the rural businesses. I can't remember the other. Businesses that are 100 and less employees, but you actually set a lower limit than that, and veteran service type businesses. And so the question is, you don't have to. We're just asking again, do you want to use that, or do you want to not?
And
those are
how-
all just guidelines. They weren't requirements at all.
And how do they get priority? Do they get bonus points in consideration, or?
The way we did it was we first awarded to what we called tier 1 businesses, and the way we identified that last time was businesses that had could demonstrate 35% or more revenue loss, and that was comparing a month to a month during calendar years, and one of those factors. So they were 35% or more revenue loss, and women-owned, and minority-owned, and rural, etc. And that was and that didn't use up all the money. So they got priority, they got first shot, and then there were several other tiers that we were able to fund. Now, we're not really thinking of it exactly the same way this time, because part of what happens is if you guys make a decision, well, a business that's up to this size gets up to this much money, what ends up happening is we don't necessarily we don't run out of the money. So then we have to add another tier, yet another layer to award the remaining money. And then some of those businesses never get back to us with the paperwork. And so now we're doing another tier. It just kind of ends in this almost endless process. So we're hoping instead to get some prioritization and then essentially see what comes in. And then from that, work with county folks to determine the award amounts. So not predetermine them up front, but determine them based on what comes in terms of applications.
Okay, yeah, so kind of divide it out to make sure the whole pie is distributed as the qualified applicants are clarified.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
I like that, yeah.
Another element here is the business size issue. So, again, the state only made a recommendation that said no more than 100 employees. I believe last time the BOCC decided to limit it to 25. Does that sound right, David? I believe so. It was definitely less than 100.
What was that?
The size limit for businesses, I think we last time
I want
around
to say
had
25.
25, yeah. So that's another question for you that would, limit the pool depending on what you want to do. And then the last one.
I'd support just keeping it to 100, if that's the guidance.
Again, then that's a recommendation, not standard.
Yeah.
And then the last time also, this is just so you know all the things that could, limit the pool. We did not consider businesses that had previously, and this is self-reported, although now we have better data to check against in terms of who's received things like the PPP, but businesses that had previously received other forms of small business support. And I think if we said yes to that, we would have a potentially very small applicant pool.
We actually had people that had several applications in last time, I remember, because they were picking them up in different locations. So I really think we need to specify one owner, one application, just to keep it fair. And I don't know, I think the 25 employees is not a bad place to be.
We could split the difference at somewhere like 50 or.
Sure, 50 would be fabulous.
That's fine, yeah.
50 is a pretty small business still.
And then, I do like the idea of kind of, having a value and starting with rural and minority-owned businesses and this whole thing. That's fine with me. I'm not opposed to any of that. It just kind of gives a little direction to it. That's the guidance from the state. That's the world we're in right now.
I think 50 fits Deschutes County just fine.
Okay.
Okay, so yes to prioritizing, not necessarily eliminating other folks, but prioritizing those special demographic groups that were mentioned. 50 employee size limit, I guess 50 or less, right?
Correct.
And then what about this last question of businesses that had previously received either, the county grant program last time, there's Business Oregon grant programs that we administered, and then of course all the federal ones that were through the Small Business Administration.
So, yeah, I don't mind if somebody gets dollars again. These are just dollars that came in, and let's get them out.
Yeah, I mean, if the specific intention behind these $1.3 million are someone who suffered a hardship during that extreme risk window, then that they could have been suffering before then and gotten some support, for a different time frame. And I'm okay with them coming back and receiving additional support if they were impacted by that extreme risk window.
I do remember someone, though, that got a grant from us, and they had gotten $434,000 in PPP funding. So that seems like quite a bit of money. Anyway, but, this has gone on quite a while. So I just think keep it simple, Scott.
Well, I mean, that raises a question of we could put some kind of a cap, like, if you've received, because it sounds like, Scott, you've got PPP data now?
Yeah, David was actually playing with it the other day. I believe it was David.
I mean, we could say, someone who's received more than $250,000 of other aid, we're going to put them in a lower priority or something like that.
Yeah, if we leave it up at 250,000, I know people that have gotten like maybe 200,000, but they've lost $500,000.
Yeah.
So it's
no, I mean,
what we're going to give them is going to be a drop if they are so lucky.
And we don't have to do that. I'm just saying if we do have a concern that there are some businesses who've been very successful in working the assistance angles, well, we could put some kind of a cap there.
Some of that data we have is kind of some of it's anonymized, so I don't necessarily know everybody.
Okay.
It's an indication. The other thing, talking to what Commissioner Dare stated, we also get a lot of applications from truly separate corporations, but they have different locations, and so it's pretty hard to say, it's one owner, one application. We've done it by business, and if the business has a separate legal entity, that's the way we distinguished it. So if you want something different than that, we have to noodle over that, how that would work.
Yeah, and the state standard is one application per registered, or one award per registered business. can be the same owner on several unrelated registered businesses. What we weren't able to do last time because of that rule was one registered business that had 4 locations. They, applied for 4 locations, and we only cut 1 check. We didn't award all 4 because it was one registered business as per the state's rules, not recommendation in that case, standard.
Okay, well,
Things always get a little more complicated when you dig into
Well, and you got experience now, too.
yeah, so I mean, if we're talking about, $1,000 or $2,000 check, I don't think we need to make it too complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so did you want to have a cap on previous award, or just leave that out of it?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If we're not talking about very large checks, so I don't think we need to make any kind of a cap and make this a complex process.
Thank you. And I just wanted to pause to see, because I think that's all the questions I had. I wanted to make sure that was like David and Greg, if you guys had others, because we were chatting about this right up until the meeting.
I mean, I guess the question I'd have for the board is, do they have a preference on whether it's just a flat amount per applicant, the grants? So they're all the same amount, or do they want them to be sized by the number of employees or the decrease in revenue or something like that? I mean, we can scale those a little bit if there is time, or we can make it really simple and just divide it. So, any input on that?
So then a big picture may be to figure out the size of the pool, and then maybe figure out 3 tiers, as I say. And as I threw out some numbers, I don't know if they'd make sense. 3 tiers of, relative to business size. Because I mean, if there's a smaller operation where, there just may be relatively different sizes operations, I guess. I don't want to assume or mention specific businesses, but I mean, some are big and some are small. Some are high throughput and some aren't as much.
We had quite a few sole proprietorships last time. So, I mean, we had a broad spectrum of sizes within the range. But I was just,
Well, I don't think for restaurants and gyms you're going to have sole proprietorships. So I think, there's going to be employees involved.
Food carts?
So that, and again, we can figure out what the amount difference should be based on the eligible applications we receive, but it sounds like there's at least some interest in some tiering of the award amounts based on the size of the eligible business. Like more for more employees, that sort of thing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm trying to be helpful without putting too many rules on it now. Now I'm hesitant to even say much more. Keep it simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so little money.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's easier just to divide by whatever and just
Divide
have
by
them.
952.
Yeah, and then just have it down to the
divide
penny, just however it just divides out. So that's why I'm hesitant to
Okay.
say anything.
Can I just ask, with the 2.2 million for, a bigger window of hardship, how many awards did we make out of that?
Oh, off the top of my head, it was in the 700 or so.
around there.
Yeah, 700 awards. And I believe the largest award you could receive, and I have to look it up again, but it was either 5,000 or 10,000.
It was 5,000.
I think it was,
I think that's 5.
okay.
A lot of checks for 2,500.
There were smaller awards. It was just, there was an amount that was established as a cap. And I don't think we're wanting to do that this time as much as see what comes in, and then based on the eligibility standards and any preference, that we do. And then, we're exactly what we were thinking is divide those into the amount available. So, okay, we'll have just one more slide, which is simply the timeline. So now, especially after this discussion, and we understand better what the will of the commission is to get the outreach going, opening, we're working on the application questions, because we have to redo some of them and some slightly different things. Testing the application, opening it at noon on Friday, closing it at essentially midnight on Thursday of next week. So they'd have a weekend, they'd have Friday, a weekend, and a few weekdays to complete it. And then work with our team and someone from the county, and we didn't know how you guys wanted to do that, if you wanted staff to participate or a commissioner or whatever, to review the applications and make the determination on awards, finalizing those on the 4th. I got to move the Zoom thing so I can see the bottom of my, notify the awardees, and then by late June, mail the checks. Yes.
June 5th is a Saturday. Are you telling me you're going to work on Saturday to notify people? Yeah, I looked it up and I'm thinking like, you guys aren't.
Did last year. Okay, you're right. It might be the 7th.
Okay.
I'll have to see. We did do in December. We worked most of those weekends and a lot of the evenings as well. But maybe you're right. That's probably just an error.
Okay, so you're going to move it to the 7th, but is it going to really take you like 3 weeks then to get the checks out? I know you said you didn't want to go crazy like last time, and I appreciate that, but you know.
Yeah, what it doesn't take 3 weeks, but we still at that point have to get what do you call it? An acceptance back from the business if they're going to accept this, which just seems weird, but we're supposed to get that. And then we have to enter everything into the system, and then print the checks, have them signed, and get them in the mail. So what we said originally on here was June 15th, but my fiscal services manager asked us just to make it a little more vague, just in case things happen. So this was the idea, is like all of them are out by late June. What ends up happening is we have to batch them in several batches, because there will still be stuff that's not, the business won't be quite ready yet. We won't have deemed that we can cut their check because we don't have their W-9 signed or whatever it is. So that's what we're proposing.
Are you going to have them send in their W-9 with the original application then, so that you don't have?
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
We are, but what ended up happening last time is 20% were filled out improperly. And so we didn't bother everybody because we didn't even know if they were going to get awarded. But then now, once we know who's getting it, we'll have to get those filled out, accurately. And we're doing everything we can. We're showing this time we're going to have a PDF up there of what a completed W-9 looks like. Everything we can to avoid all this stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the share just so I can see a little better. But anyway, it takes a little while to get it all processed and out the door.
Okay.
Okay.
How long is this application? I mean, is it going to take someone
About 3 hours.
half an hour? Is it going to take them 2 hours?
If they have their information in hand, it probably about 15 minutes, to 20.
Okay.
If they don't have the information in hand or they don't understand something, and that happened a lot, it'll take longer.
Okay.
Had lots of
It's
compliments.
basics. Excuse me?
I said we had lots of compliments over our application, though. They said it was the best one that they had filled out when people were picking up their checks, and they wanted to pass that information on. So even though I know we didn't get all the information you wanted originally, people were really appreciative that you weren't taxing them, with more documentation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the things that go sideways are little things like what's a federal tax ID number or an EIN, or they're a sole proprietor and they actually use their social security number, which is fine. We can take that, but they don't realize that. So there's just little things like that.
Okay, you have what you need?
We do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great discussion.
Can I also just ask, have we started talking yet about business assistance that will be funneled out from ARP? And do you all at COIC have any ideas of any proposals for what that might look like if you were to administer those funds?
We've been just sort of asking around to our jurisdictions if that's an interest. And so far, it hasn't been. There's been an interest in other kinds of investments. Now, I don't know if that's going to change or obviously what you guys want to do, but so far we've kind of have a staffing plan and we're ready. It's basically, the same kind of stuff we would be doing just administratively, but we're just kind of waiting to hear if anybody wants to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to we're sifting through all these different ideas for ERP funds.
Oh, yeah.
So it's I don't know if any of us could say anything definitively right now, but I just wanted to understand whether COIC had any kind of like vision for how that could work if we did want to do that.
Well, and just on that topic more generally, I believe this was in a conversation last week here at the commission. Greg and I have been talking about reaching out to all the cities and counties in Central Oregon and just to share initially how everyone is thinking about ARPA funding, the criteria you might use, or just your approach, your process, where you're at, and just to learn from each other. And then are there shared things that you want to, a city and a county or two cities or whatever, to leverage each other's investments as well. So I anticipate that conversation late next week with city managers and county administrators. But that's, we haven't, no one's decided we're necessarily doing that, but it's heading in that direction.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Yep. Have a great
one.
day.
You too.
So at this time, other items, are there any updates?
I thought the faculty project review team was outstanding, listening to their analysis of the 4 questions with cost differences, what we want to do for the parole and probation project was really so happy. They're architects, people that have been in the industry for a long time, and their decision-making skills were outstanding. So really happy that we brought those on as one of our teams. And we also had a co-op meeting on Thursday afternoon, and that was talking about funding. And it looks like if Sisters can actually buy the land, that they can get $80,000 from ODOT for the mobility hub there. So that was good to know.
Also, so that was Thursday afternoon, you say? Or Thursday
Right.
night?
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday afternoon, we were at the Mobility Advisory Committee, so Commissioner Chang and I were it was a kind of a public ODOT meeting, so we were both at that one. And it's working with the trucking industry and gaining acceptance of the roundabouts on the Highway 20 corridor coming into Bend. So that was a meeting where we just happened to be in attendance together.
Yeah. I was just trying to remember
Yeah, I know. What did we
what
do?
else I might need to.
The Hawthorne project got $2.2 million. There was quite a bit of funding. The Sisters had been, we were told no, they weren't going to get it because they didn't own the land, but they did award it on the temporary basis that if they do get the land purchased, they'll be able to get that funding.
I guess the one thing the one other item I would raise is just that I've heard from probably about 100 constituents at this point about concerns about gating and closure of the 4606 road going in towards the Bull Springs Tree Farm and the Deschutes National Forest, and trying to do some homework to figure out what the situation is there and what, if anything, the county's role is.
Well, and I've researched that too, and we're getting direct emails on that very specifically. It concludes as a private property owner and U.S. Forest Service right away. Maybe there's something a commission could do, but it's not on. It's not a public right of way that the county manages. It's very much a topic that is getting people engaged. But we're not going to be able to sit up here and thumbs up or thumbs down on opening or closing the gate. That's not us. Okay. Anything else?
The fair board said they wanted to do the fair. So I know we're having the document signed that took 20 years. It's going to be on our agenda on Wednesday, which is wonderful. And so tonight I'm hoping that the Fair Board and the association are going to get together and figure out, okay, we don't have that much time, but we definitely can have a fair. I watched the Reading Rodeo this weekend, and they had thousands of people in the audience. So somebody is doing things in California. So hopefully it's going to come up here, and our high COVID numbers in Deschutes County are going to start evaporating. So hopefully soon.
I spoke to Gladys Sappington and Brian Shield last week when we'd heard about the Fair Board meeting, the Fair Association meeting, and I'm supportive of having our meeting, our agenda item on Wednesday. But my point is, I don't know that we're going to be ready for a large indoor concert. So we'll see what happens. I mean, that'll be the domain of the group that puts it together, which means we'll probably have, maybe something inside the event center itself. But outdoor music, and then the rodeo is probably going to be the premier event that'll bring people in, instead of the 1960s rock band that's on their last tours.
I like those.
I know, I do too. I'm just joking.
Bring back America. Any
I know.
But
so premier event may be the
rodeo.
Rodeo, yeah.
Well, and Jeff had worked out things to have music outside, and of course it's always interesting. And if we have our weather, so are we going to have our little lightning and thunderstorm that day or not? So.
Probably torrential rainstorms.
Tons of smoke. Yeah.
We need rain. Yeah. We do need rain. Yeah. So you know what? So
Wednesday we'll have agenda item. It'll be exciting, bringing everybody together. Let's be positive. Obviously, this is right as transition of COVID's happening, but we've got 6 weeks or so, or 7 weeks, whatever it is.
Is it only 7 weeks away?
Was
all
it
of June,
July,
and all of
July,
July, right?
Months, yeah, so 8-9 weeks. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did. I missed a month in there.
9 weeks away.
Yeah, 9 weeks. There you go.
That sounds excellent.
Yeah, I was rounding down a month, I guess. Okay. Anything, Tom?
Well, I was just going to say I wasn't sure there was a meeting tonight, but I did ask Jeff to invite both the presidents of both boards for Wednesday's agenda item to be prepared to speak with you all about just concepts and ideas, and so make sure that they get from you whatever direction or ideas or thoughts you might have on the event. So either tonight or Wednesday we'll have a discussion with them. Jeff will be there obviously as well.
Well, and closing up on that concert comment I made. I mean, I love every band that's ever been there too. I've been to a lot of those concerts, so I didn't mean to disparage anybody that's still touring.
And don't forget Pat.
Just because you're all just about old enough to really appreciate, when some of those bands came around the first time, doesn't mean that people don't like them.
And then also
There's some of us in this room are about the age of some of them.
I know, exactly.
The other thing, just FYI, that Holly's item is on your consent on Wednesday.
Yeah. So that was the prep for that.
Okay, good deal.
So 6 o'clock in this room, I'll be doing the community forum for county administrator recruitment. So that'll be Nick Lilac, the top candidate, and myself. I think some HR support. Whitney may be in the room too. And please join us if you'd like on the Zoom or however you want to do, because this is the public version of the recruitment process.
Yeah, I unfortunately, a while ago, I signed up for a Sister Citizens for Community discussion they're having tonight about long-term camping on federal lands. So
not a problem.
I might just have to come back and watch the recording.
Yep, share it with everybody at the event tonight that they can go home and watch the recording. Exactly. Okay. So at this time, we do have an executive session scheduled. So this will be executive session under 1926602H, litigation.